Jay. How's it all, Scott?
We're looking good, my friend.
Always looking good in the studio. Speaking of studios,
Be furrowed her brow intensely.
I was talking about you, Bevo.
I couldn't get my headphones on.
Okay, she didn't hear.
No, but thank you.
Yeah, no, correct.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
Did I say I'm Jay this time around?
yes,
Yeah.
you did. Yep.
Good.
That's the only thing
roaring
you said
start.
so far. Yeah.
You know, we're about to be in the roaring 20s again.
That is
Scott.
so true,
Yeah,
man.
hopefully no depression at the end.
It's 9 years out.
Yeah, we're good.
Yeah, we're
We'll
good.
long be gone.
Let's
by then.
wildly overspin.
We're in the Brewing Network studios in downtown Concord, here with Scott. Hey, Scott.
Hello.
And Bevo, who you heard from earlier. Hey, Bevo.
Hello.
Hi, Beef.
Joining us, I was about to say this evening, I'm just all thrown off, but this afternoon, Kevin Osborne from Celador. Hey, Kev, thanks for coming.
Oh, I forgot to give him the,
Yeah, you
the
didn't.
spiel. Hey,
I knew you
yeah,
guys could see
talk
that coming.
really close.
Hello.
Bring the mic to you. Yeah, it's on a nice matriculating arm.
Get it
and
even
like,
closer.
like eat
Is-
the mic cover.
Is,
Hello.
is it on? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I know it just doesn't
Everybody.
seem like it.
Killing it. Kevin was nice enough to join us in studio today and bring his delicious beers, which we're really excited about.
Celador.
Yeah. Before we get to the fun stuff, let's do the rigmarole here. Feedback. Scott at thebrewingnetwork.com, Jay at thebrewingnetwork.com. You never call. No, seriously. We love answering your guys' questions and interacting with the listeners. So, I'm talking to you, person who just subscribes and doesn't do anything. We don't ask a lot from you.
Really
So
don't.
send us an email. Give us a review and a rating on the Apple Podcast thing or wherever you get this. Listen live on the Brewing Network app. Just search BN Mobile in the search bar of wherever you're doing that. And did I say watching on the brewingnetwork.com/TV?
You did now.
Okay, cool. We're good. Yeah. How's it going, Scott?
It's going good, man. Yeah, we were just, right before we hit the air here, there's a bunch of things to say. As this is the last Sour Hour broadcast of 2019,
That's correct.
the last shows of the year, and in fact, the last shows of the decade. Like you mentioned, we're heading into the 2020s here, and that wraps up a decade of broadcasting. Of course, it's 15 plus years for the Brewing Network in general, and we've been on this whole decade. You can see, where did 2010 start? We're still in the spare bedroom of the rat pad.
Yeah.
We'd moved on from the garage, but we'd not moved on from that house yet.
We've come a long way, baby.
Yeah, that's right. And then we're still 4 years away from meeting you guys. You were just a dirty thought in.
You're just a twinkle in craft beer brewing
That's
industry's
right.
eye.
Yes, you were working at the brewery in 2010. Is that right?
That is correct.
In 2009. What year did you start that job? 2008.
November 2008.
There you go.
I say I was the first job Obama created. That's for
Yeah,
that's
right.
for you.
First and only. So you were basically wearing your brewer's boots and right in the middle of your tenure at the brewery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's always good to look back, I think, end of the year, end of the decade. And I think optimistic about the 20s.
Well, do you remember having thoughts at that era, like right in the middle of your tenure? Were you already starting to think like, I want my own spot?
I wanted to start a brewery before working in craft beer. Like that was in college for sure. How long it would take and what that path would look like, I had no idea. And I would say, I think now people, so I had about 4 years of experience before starting, and now I think that's plenty. I mean, people are starting breweries with 0 or just 1 or 2, and that's kind of the norm. At the time, I felt like, man, like is this going like too fast? And there's
Like
always
4 wasn't enough.
Yeah, I mean, there's always more to learn. Certainly, I could have learned a lot more, but just gotta jump off the cliff sometime. So
What did you feel like? Do you remember having specific thoughts as like, man, I wish I would have taken more time to learn? Like, what do you mean?
construction, welding, plumbing,
Oh, okay, yeah, trades.
trade school.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
Totally.
If you're, I wish I could just talk to I wish I could go to like a contractors conference and just say set up a booth there, and then just try to recruit all of them to be like entry level brewers. It's like, do you hate your job? Want to get free beer? Come to the brewing industry. You will be hired at every single brewery. They will love you.
Yeah.
If you get someone who knows how to do your electrical work
Oh,
and
so
you teach them how to
valuable.
brew,
So valuable.
it's unbelievable.
That's so true.
Yeah.
Kevin, where were you at in 2010?
2010. I guess not home brewing yet. I started home brewing in like 2012 or 2013, so still just a public person drinking West Coast beers.
You were a drinker.
Yeah, just
Yeah,
drinking.
for sure. So when did the homebrewing start?
Yeah, it started in like 2013. Did like a batch at home, made like a not very good IPA with a friend or a roommate at the time, and like fell instantly in love with it, and then like kind of quickly got into sour beers after that and started exclusively doing that.
Awesome. Yeah, I want to get more into Kevin's background, of course, but before the reminiscing is done, it's, as we were saying before we went to air, we've been doing this show
Yeah.
more than half of the decade. We started in 2014, right around the time we opened the
So weird.
Grenade. I know, it is weird. And as I can't remember if I said it on the show or not, maybe like around, I don't know, when we were doing the 100th episode or so, I've been doing this show longer than I was producing the session,
Yeah.
which seems really, really weird.
That is weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Time goes, man. But it's been a crazy decade from the Rat Pad to the Martinez studio for a couple of years, and then to building the Grenade, broadcasting from here. Beef, thoughts? She's like, I don't know why I'm still here.
I'm here.
Ego's trying to figure out how old she is.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Before the show, she was like, I went through an entire week thinking I was the wrong age.
I did. It was,
Good job not saying
Sad.
the number, Scott.
But-
Careful.
well, it's fine. But I was happy to find out that I was actually younger than I thought
Yeah,
I was. So
right.
That's the way
that
to
was a
go.
silver lining.
You got it you guessed in the wrong direction, but it made you feel
I
better.
well,
Yeah.
I felt old, so
Yeah.
that was why I. Cool.
Well, you're talking about, being more on this show seems weird than that you've been on this show longer than the session. So time flies when you're having fun.
Yes.
So what does that say about the session?
We'll let you
That
guys
it
do the
seems- that it
logical
seems much,
conclusion
much
there.
longer.
It felt like an eternity. Yeah.
Go check out our last show, which was great. We had John Rowley in the house. Brewery of the Year, freshly crowned from GABF, his conquer of the beer world there. That was a lot of fun. And what else is news? I think that's pretty much it. You have anything else, Scott?
I do. Let's see.
Oh, okay. So remind me what I have to say again.
John, Raleigh Farmhouse. I just want to get you guys to get a little quick behind the scenes on like how extraordinarily difficult recording the liners
Hey,
is.
this is John from Raleigh Farmhouse Sales. You're listening to the shit. This is hard.
He's not wrong.
You're done. Great job.
It's a lot harder than it sounds.
I guess so. That was good having John, man. Then that was it. Charisse, the Charisse and the double Charisse. Charisse.
Oh, yeah.
Holy moly, that beer really stuck with me. That beer was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, all the beers he brought were incredible, but that beer in particular was just freaking mind blowing.
Yeah, I don't know if I said this on the air or off, and no pressure, Kevin, but
Yeah.
I think I told him it was one of the best beers I've had in like 6 months or something. Like
Yep,
that.
I'm with you. Truly,
awesome.
just absolutely tremendous.
Yeah. very cool.
And as speaking of tremendous beer that blows your mind unexpectedly, I'd be remiss if I didn't point out that Kevin and Celador sent unannounced a package of beer. This is my first exposure to your brand, which I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure was brand new at the time. This has
Think
got to
so.
be back in 2015 or maybe early 2016. A case of beer of they're what 375?
Yeah, 375s.
Yeah, showed up unannounced. I'd never heard of it. I'd never seen your branding before, which is gorgeous and remains gorgeous. It's kind of like watercolory. Is that fair to say? Labels.
Yeah, definitely. It's like a little effeminate, like,
Yeah, soft.
soft.
Yeah.
for the most part.
Yeah.
But beautiful. And man, every one of them, I think it was 12 beers, 2 a beer were just outstanding. Everyone, it's like, man. And of course,
Viva holds up.
what I did was take credit, like, oh, look how good Sour Beer's gotten as a result of our show. But I'm excited that you're finally now, here we are years later, and you're on the show.
Yeah, it's awesome. It definitely helps. I listened like from the beginning and learned a lot of shit from it.
Awesome.
awesome.
It's a good way to round out the year and the decade.
Agreed.
What's going on with what's the 2020? What's the rare barrels? What are you guys looking forward to coming in the next year?
I'm looking forward to completing this brew house installation. Project.
Yes. Where you at on that?
Our great and not at all in financial despair local utility company finally approved our increased gas meter or line that we need for the steam system we're going to be installing. So
They still get to make those sort of discretionary decisions.
yeah, the governor isn't fully in charge of that yet, but
Rip
he's trying.
PG&E.
Yeah. Yeah, so kind of that was a little bit of the holdup on ordering the rest of the equipment and all that stuff. So I think our longest lead time on equipment is about 2 months. So after 2 months from now, so late February, everything will be in house, and then it's just up to the contractors to get kind of like the connections and stuff done. So maybe another 2 to 4 weeks after that, brew a water batch, and then brew our first in-house batch.
What was it just a matter of waiting for their approval? Like it was just a time thing, or were you actually thinking they weren't going to approve it? What was that process?
All of the above. I mean, it's kind of like waiting to get an answer, it's just like, there's a lot of bureaucracy at work. And
Sure.
it was, I don't know if they're, so this is Pacific Gas and Electric, and, they're maybe more nationally known than they want to be at this point now.
Yeah, California wildfire trouble.
Yeah. So that's more like an electrical issue. So I'm not sure if like the departments are separated at all, or that had any effect on slowing it down or whatever. But I said I was looking forward to completing this project. It's actually at this point more just to have it behind me than like looking forward to like the first brew or anything. So
Yep.
it's like we were saying that the contractor, all the stuff about that you don't know when you start a brewery. It's like, yeah, it's amazing how much a part of it, like construction and like equipment installation is, and it's like a huge cost of the business as well. But it's the dirty part of making great beer.
What was the total amount of time from first applying to finally getting the go-ahead?
Beginning of August to 2 weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago. So
Okay, yes, for 4 or 5 months.
several
something
months.
like that. Yeah.
For just like oh yeah,
Yeah.
that'll work.
Go ahead now. Yeah.
Pretty crazy.
Yep.
All right. What should we do? Should we do an early segment and then get into
Yes.
Kevin and the beers?
I think unless you want to. Yeah. Let's do that. Yeah.
Okay. We'll take a quick break and be right back. This is the Sour Hour on the Brewing Network.
We about to put it on you right here, right now. Let you know how it goes down. And this is what it is.
Proof like moonshine. Playing yourself is risky. I rock it. For electricity.
Need their daily dosage. I break it down mathematically. 99.9 is the percentage. Like closing for the wine, rhymes of vintage. And the universal will give me strength like spinach. Like a tofu sandwich. Cabbage. She knows that.
Reality's the root of the rhymes. Jehu the damager, the sun toucher.
Hey, this is John Rowley, Rowley Farmhouse Sales. You're listening to the Sour Hour on the Brewing Network.
Nailed it.
Yeah. He's going to always want that other one, though. I love it because he said, if you just like read a transcript of what he said, it's like, you're listening to shit.
God damn it. Yeah, you're listening to
You're
shit.
listening to shit.
That is so true. Man, maybe we should have just kept that one. It's the most accurate liner yet.
Yeah, we can clip it. Except my beer smells like farts or whatever that one was.
Your fart tastes great.
Yeah, your farts taste great. You wouldn't know that.
This is hard.
You're done. Great job.
It's a lot harder than it sounds. Hey, this is John from Rowley Farmhouse Sales. You're listening to the shit.
There you go.
The shit. Very different.
I'll tell you what's not shit. Our guest. Got Kevin from Celador. Boom. It's a professional
Nailed
transition,
it. Look at
Marty.
you.
You're witnessing the greatest. I was recently called the best podcaster of the decade. I don't know if you know that, but
By who?
myself just now. Well, Kevin, I mean, we have a lot to talk about, but I think we have to address the elephant in the room, which is how big was the elephant that stepped on your hand and broke it?
Yes.
Kevin has a
Yeah, I've
Yes.
got a bandage on my hand. So
like it's like a splint. What do you call that thing?
yeah, I don't know. Yeah, sure.
Like keeps your finger
Keeps the
immobile.
finger straight,
Plus
yeah.
like gauze wrapped.
yeah.
What happened?
So I was cleaning some barrels a couple weeks ago, and had them up on like a forklift, and one of them kind of fell off the barrel, and sort of crushed my hand between another barrel, and busted my skin open. Didn't break the bone, but I got 9 stitches in my index finger.
Wow.
I was at the brewery by myself, so I took a lift to the ER, and was actually brewing that day, so called in some help,
Wow.
and got him stitched up, went back to work,
Oh,
filled
man.
some barrels, and that was 3 weeks ago. And it's the stitches are out now, but it's like not fully healed.
Oh boy.
Still,
I know how you feel. I
Bad.
got the splinter. It's just
Yeah.
won't quit.
I stubbed my toe a few weeks
yeah, it was
ago.
pretty gruesome.
Was it the metal banding on the barrel that cut
Honestly, I don't know. It happened so quick. I don't think it actually cut it. I think it sort of like tore open my finger, or like kind of popped it
it?
open.
Yeah,
It's like
pressure.
not like a
Whoa.
clean cut. It's like a real nasty.
Oh, brother.
Yeah, Bevo, where are you going?
You want to see it,
Beavis
Bevo?
Just because of this?
Grossed out later.
Yeah, wow. And then you went back and you knocked out the batch?
We knocked it out. Yeah, we actually cheated a little bit. Like ended up fermenting in our transfer tanks
Oh,
for
yeah.
a couple days.
Been there.
But we saved it.
So
Didn't
that was
dump the
not
batch.
barrel fermented then?
Not barrel fermented,
Oh
but I
my
won't
God.
say
Oh
which
my
one.
God.
Lies. A brewery built on lies.
Exactly.
We've kind of gone in medias a little bit, but
Yeah.
let's take a step back. We talked a little bit about your background. Let's kind of follow that through. You started home brewing in the 13?
Yeah, around
2013
2013,
area?
and fell in love with it right away, and kind of instantly had it in the back of my mind to eventually open something of my own, and wanted to have some sort of brewing experience, and got kind of quick fake experience. I worked at Golden Road actually before they sold out in the packaging line for 6 months, and then I worked an kind of internship thing at Stone Brewing in Escondido for 3 months.
Was it the facility in, was it Burbank, right? Golden Road.
Golden Road, yeah. So when I worked at Stone, I commuted from LA for 3 months and worked the graveyard shifts. It was one of the worst times of my life.
Yeah, commuting in LA is just soul sucking.
Yeah. And then right after I left Stone, we started writing a business plan and really sort of planning this thing out.
Who's we?
Sarah, my wife, and I.
Your wife or is she your wife?
Wife
Yeah.
or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're I don't know, married.
Yeah. Sarah, she and I together did that.
How did you know his vows?
And as we were doing that, I also won actually the brewery's homebrew competition, and made a beer with them called Batch 1731, and that came out. We brewed that, and then the next month we signed a lease for the space we're in. So
Wow.
that
What
was
kind of beer was that?
4 years ago. It was we called it a sort of in style a Brett IPA,
Mm-hmm.
multi-Brett primary fermentation, hoppy, dry hopped thing.
Cool.
Which tasted good for a couple months and then tasted
Fell
not
off a
very
cliff.
good after that.
Did
Just straight Band-Aids.
do you remember how many entries approximately you beat out?
I don't remember. It was maybe 150 if I remember
Okay,
correctly.
wow, a lot. Yeah, no kidding. Did you look at that, winning that as kind of a sign, okay, now's the time? Yeah, I mean, if you signed a lease right away, was that,
Yeah. It was definitely felt like a good thing to happen in that time frame. I think it gave me the confidence to really go forward with what we were doing.
I think I was there when we did that the first time around, and I believe the beer that won was a Goose, and
Yeah, I remember that.
the brewer was Al Buck from East Coast Yeast, actually.
yeah. Was that what became
right.
Ruse?
Um,
Or was it only brewed one time?
I think it was just called that. Is it's the similar thing to that Kim was saying. It was a batch
A batch
number,
number, yeah.
and then
Okay.
it was called Goose or something
Gotcha.
like that, which was not a good thing to call it, but whatever.
Yeah.
It's before we knew better.
Yeah.
Awesome. So that takes us up to
20,
the lease signing.
Yeah, the lease signing. Yeah. So
And you guys are in North Hills, which is just north of
yeah,
LA?
it's LA City still, but in the San Fernando Valley
Mhm.
by Van Nuys. We're actually less than a mile from the Budweiser factory in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
So they're brewing your wort, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. He's
I was always
contracted.
curious how that would go into a sour beer. Just like the macro.
Yeah,
Light
just
lager
like take some
macro.
wort and
Yeah.
ferment it out. Might be kind of cool.
Probably would be pretty good.
Yeah.
Was the space what you like? Did you look for a space in a specific area, or were you like we'll
We
go
were
wherever
looking
the
all
right
over
space
LA,
is?
and it just kind of happened to be that one. It's like the first place that would take us because, like, we're doing it on like a low budget and without like great personal financials. So it was like, yeah, we'll take you, and we just took it.
Describe the space.
It's a small space. It's like 2,700 square feet, I think.
Wow.
Sort of, standard industrial zoning type space. And we went 2 years without a tasting room, and then about a year and a half ago, just opened a small tasting room that sort of shares a space with the brewing side. So we every week we kind of break it down and like put it back together.
That's right. I
It's not
remember.
fun.
I remember being because I'm in LA pretty frequently.
Yeah.
My brother's got an art gallery in Hollywood, and I remember writing you this. I think it was before your tasting room was open because I was
Yeah.
like, "Yeah, I want to come by," and you were like, "Well, there's no buy to come to, really."
Yeah, like I think I was out of town that day or something. So it's like, and then we didn't have any employees for the first couple of years.
Right, no,
It was just
and no
two of us,
tasting room, and so
Yeah.
so it was just strictly a packaging and distribution operation, or were you only selling bottles out of the space?
Mostly packaging and distribution plus like a club. So we did like, online sales and shipping.
It's a good one. What's the name of the club in case people want to join?
The club is called the Single Barrel Syndicate.
Cool.
And yeah, we open it up like, every September-ish.
Awesome. Cool. And the reason you didn't want to open the tasting room for the first 2 years, just
Mostly a financial
Yeah.
situation, we just kind of like had enough money just to get production going.
cool. Awesome. Well, that's definitely starting, small on the small side.
Yeah.
But I think your brand has grown to, it's bigger than 2,700 square feet for sure. You're really well known out
Yeah,
there.
you wouldn't necessarily know. I think that we have a pretty good reputation. But yeah, still for the first, 2.5 years, it was just the two of us. And now we've just hired our 5th employee. So we're still real small and still in the same space.
Yeah. It's funny because off air, you were asking how many employees we had
Yeah,
at
yeah.
Rare Barrel, and I said 20, and you're like, that's still pretty small. But
yeah, it
you're,
seems reasonable. Yeah.
and I was like, oh, it seems it's feels like a lot, but yeah, I mean 4 or 5, that's
Yeah.
very intimate.
Yeah, it's
for
very
sure.
intimate. It's tight. Yeah.
And is that so now you have taste room staff? Do you have help on the production side, or is it still mostly you?
It's just me, and we're about to hire. We hired one guy, and we're about to hire a second person that'll be like part-time tasting room, part-time brewery employee.
Cool.
Like staff.
Awesome. Well, you were kind enough to bring us some beers that we'll be trying throughout the show, and we have the first one open in front of us, which is, I guess the thing that sticks out the most right away is the color. I don't see a lot of beers that look like this. It's sort of like, I don't know, like Allagash white if an alien brewed it, kind of. You know?
a little.
Yeah,
pale-
it's kind of
little
like an
pale, yeah.
opaque, like really, really clear.
And
Well, not
this,
clear, a little haze, but like real light.
this beer is called JIA.
Yeah, it's
Gia?
called Gia. So we do like we're just starting to do like 2 sort of core beers, and one of them is a beer we called Famille. I call it a small oat saison. It's like a table sour, and this beer is a variant of that. So Gia means family in Japanese, maybe. So like all the variants we do are just like different languages of the word family. And this one has Constellation white nectarines from a farm called Andy's Orchard in Morgan Hill, California. They're like just kind of south of San Francisco area.
Yeah.
They're one of
My
my favorite
co-founder's
farms.
hometown.
Yeah, I remember I talked about that. Their fruit is amazing. It's like some of the best fruit you'll ever have. And we did like a real soft fruiting for this. It was about a 1/2 pound per gallon. Just to kind of, like we wanted the beer to play with the fruit still. So you get some of that kind of like fruity, sweet tarty flavor from it, but it's pretty light.
Yeah. What do you think of this beer, Scott?
Yeah, the sweet tarty thing is what really hits home description wise. And we were in the break there. We were talking about how a bunch of many of your beers. I don't know about all, but many of your beers have that characteristic of this sour candy. It's chalky is not the right word because that sounds a little.
I use that.
Okay,
to
sure.
describe it.
I mean that in only the best way.
Yeah,
that
yeah.
it has a sort of chalky sour candy. like delightful in the way that sour candy is delightful, but without sweetness. But
Yeah.
like you get like a sensation of sweet because of the fruit, even though there's nothing sweet about this beer.
That's
It's
like
really a wonderful like sensory experience.
that's my favorite thing to do is like try and make a beer that's like as dry as possible, but has this like sort of like perception of sweetness. This is like one of the driest beers we've ever made. It's under 0 Plato, but I think that the fruit, but also we use honey to bottle condition everything. I think that the honey gives it kind of like that perception of sweetness too, where like some of the flavor of the honey remains in the beer after it's fully dried out, and kind of gives it some of that like fruity, fuller mouthfeel.
Have you encountered other brewers doing that, bottle conditioning with honey? Or either of you?
I know people have done it. I don't know if anyone does it like as an exclusive thing.
Right.
Why did you pick that as as the process?
I was doing that as a home brewer. The idea was that I wanted to use a sugar source that was like more special than just table sugar. Like I had thought that I was trying to make something like really unique and like slow and like use really high-end ingredients for all the process in the beer, and it just made sense to me, and just kind of kept going with it.
Practically speaking, I think people who do use, simple sugar, it comes in a sack.
Yeah,
You boil it up. It's, it's easy to introduce.
yeah.
Are there any challenges associated with using honey?
I don't think so. We've gotten our process down pretty good. So what we do is we measure it out, what we think we're going to need for the batch, mix it with some like 185-degree water to make it like fully liquid, cool it back down to like under 100 degrees, and then we'll mix the honey in with our yeast starter before we add it to the beer, sort of like make sure everything's fully mixed together. And we mix a lot with CO2 in the tank, like as we're bottling, just to make sure everything stays in solution. Although I don't think that's really a problem that much. I think that once you mix it, it's like pretty stable and equalized. But what we do so that to make sure, like we don't test the sugar of the honey before we add it. So what we do is always take like gravity readings before we add the honey and gravity readings after, and just always make sure that we're getting the same difference, the same like change in gravity. Before we bottle. And sometimes we sort of undercut it usually, so we don't have like majorly overcarb beers, and we're, I'd say 50% of the time adding a little bit more honey to hit our actual target.
Okay, interesting. Scar, do you have any fuzz in your headphones?
No.
You do? Okay.
Yeah, I can get you a new set if you want to use the other.
No, I mean,
module
it doesn't
over
bother me. I was just worried
Oh,
about that.
no, we're good.
Okay,
Yep.
cool.
I sort of find that 130% of what you'd use as like table sugar is like the right amount.
Okay. And what kind of honey are we talking about?
We use orange blossom honey from a farm called Bennett's Family Farm, which is like maybe 40 minutes north of us in LA. We went there and we tasted all their honeys, and that was the one I liked the best.
Gotcha.
And sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
They're different flavored honeys, right? Are
Yeah,
there?
absolutely.
Yeah.
They have like dozens of different honeys.
Yeah, sure. Have you experimented with other ones?
We've done a few things. We've bottle conditioned. We've done some berry beers where we used like blueberry flower or like blackberry flower honey for them. And we've made a honey beer called Malona, which used like an extreme amount of. We've done 2 versions. One was sage flower honey, and one was blueberry blossom flower honey.
In your experience using these different honeys, as far as I understand it, kind of like the bees are landing on these plants, so like the blackberry flower, but
Yeah.
it's not necessarily that the honey will taste like.
No,
whatever you're
definitely not.
describing,
Like
right?
sometimes you get like the hint of it, or they're definitely different from like variety to variety, but it's not necessarily the flavor that the flower was.
Right, gotcha. And your comment about using, I think it was it 120% or
130.
130%? Is that, and this shows my ignorance on the honey front, but I think maybe different sugars might have different.
Yeah.
Are there different like, I guess like sugar like contents of the different honeys?
I guess so. I don't really of the different honeys. I don't really know, like, because we almost exclusively use that one variety. It's like pretty similar from batch
Okay.
to batch, and it's a pretty big farm, so I think that they're blending a lot of honeys too, to reach like a
Their
stable flavor.
specifications?
Yeah, their
Gotcha.
specifications. But I'm not really sure. I think that mostly it's just like pound for pound, like there's a different amount of sugar
Mhm.
in honey versus table sugar.
Gotcha.
It's not as pure.
Well, we chatted briefly about this off air, but let's talk about the color of this beer
Yeah.
because, and I'll send our listeners, since this is a podcast, Scott. I don't know if you knew that.
We'll be right back. Oh wait, what?
Well, we can hold this up to the camera to see. Although I'm not sure something this
Which camera's
subtle, will
Okay.
translate.
Yeah, especially as you get like light in it like that, you can really see how clear it is now.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
just,
yeah.
it's just a beautiful, a very intriguing color. There's a great shot on the Celador Instagram, so I'll send you guys that way to look
Yeah.
up this beer.
It's almost champagne-y.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah,
a little more
it's like
saturated,
cidery,
but it's like
champagne-y.
pastel champagne.
So how do you explain what's going on?
Yeah, a
here?
lot of
While
people
you
have asked me
explain-
this.
Sorry, what beer do you want to do next? And I'm going to go get it. While
Oh,
you
can you
explain.
grab the Carrot King? But can you also
Sure.
grab Jackson Ranch so it warms up?
Carrot King and Jackson Ranch? Yes.
So this beer is, it's a really light beer. It's like 1030 specific gravity starting, and finishing at like 0 Plato, so it's like 3.8%.
Yeah.
And we use for this beer Pilsner from Admiral Malting Co. And we used to use this.
That's a local Bay Area.
Yeah,
malting
local
company.
California malting company, Bay Area. There's a farm just north of LA called Tehachapi Grain Project. And for the first couple batches of Famille, we used their raw French black oats as like the oat source of this. But they're like real small and like a startup. And this year they weren't able to get any of their oats like from the harvest. So this batch, I believe, has also the oats from the same company as the
Yeah.
Pilsner.
Mhm.
And I don't remember what the percentage is, but I think it's like 30 or 40% oats.
Yeah.
Quite a bit of oats. And, sort of fermented like all our beers, like mixed culture primary, super dry, like I mentioned. And I think maybe in this particular beer, the white nectarines are like giving it an even clearer, like lighter
Mm-hmm.
color than normal. But honestly, I'm not really sure what makes it so light other than that, or what makes it distinct from like any other beer that's 3.8%.
Yeah.
But it does have a distinct color.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. You mentioned that this is kind of a lower gravity beer. I always find that I think low gravity brewing can be especially challenging. My theory is that like the fermentation is a little problematic. Like I think there's people think about upper limits of like brewer's yeast.
Yeah.
10% alcohol, 15% alcohol, whatever it's going to be. I kind of like think about the lower limit, like how is it going to go through its normal like reproduction cycle and be content? I think sometimes at the lower levels, you just get certain off flavors. So how do you what do you have any recommendations for successfully executing a low gravity beer like this to the listeners?
I think that I'm not really sure about like the actual fermentation side and like what's ideal, but I think that flavor wise, you want to like build as much body in as possible. So like that's why we use a lot of oats in this beer. I think that also having it be a mixed culture that's like not going to kick up as quickly and be kind of a slower fermentation kind of helps it like act more like a normal beer. And we kind of underpitch all our beers a little bit, and I think that also helps it from like getting too dry too fast and being like kind of thin and like flabby.
And why do you underpitch?
I used to worry about our flavors or like our beers like early in our first couple months brewing. I'd like taste them all the time and like take gravity readings, and like all the sour beers we were making were like really slow to like attenuate. They like a lot of them would hit like 1020 specific gravity and then like stall for a couple weeks, and it just like scared the crap out of me. But then I realized that they always eventually finished, like no matter like how much yeast we pitched. And I was talking to some of the guys that work for Beechwood Blendery in Orange County, and they were telling me about their experiments in like pitch rates and how they'd like pitch like almost no yeast, and like they felt like that they got the best flavor out of that. So we just kind of like tried it based off their experience, and I've liked it that way too. Also, like on a small scale, and since we don't have a brew house, it's more difficult to like always have a good like prop up pitch of yeast.
Sure.
So like since we really keep our cultures in carboys, it's just like it's easy, like makes it easier for us on all sides.
Yeah, lower target to hit for sure. Are we coming up on break time? Okay.
Yeah, but we have so many beers to get through. Let's do this one and then take a break. Let's do this next one and then take a break.
Run through it and then take a break, or do you want to tease it?
Oh, we can tease it. Yeah, sure.
So we'll pour this
yeah.
one out. This looks like an interesting carrot color beer.
This is a carrot beer, yeah.
So yeah, let's.
Whoa, that color's
I
crazy.
know, this is great. You'll hear all
Whoa.
about it after the break. This is the Sour Hour on the Brewing Network. Marty likes it.
Look at your face when all I could see was myself looking back at me. Reflection. And all I could do was think about sleeping next to you. Look at your face when all I could see was myself looking back at me. Reflection. And all I could do was think about sleeping next to you. What would it take to make a woman like you? You a wolf like me, for what I really might be. Listening to lyrics only, here's what I allow. You gotta try to make me testify for hearing right now. Let's have a confrontation over a cold one. I'll give you conversation just to see if you can hold them. I play so dumb because I know some of these starstruck small talk art fucks is no fun. I'm the blood type that goes straight for the guns, like before you even spoke, already knew what your love's like. So what you thinking? Because I'm thinking we should jump into your ocean. Let's go, girl, this ship is sinking. Look at your face when all I could see was myself looking back at me. Reflection. And all I could do was think about sleeping next to you. Look at your face when all I could see was myself looking back at me. Reflection. And all I could do was think about sleeping next to you. Now there's no reason to lie, I've had a lot of lovers. In my reality it's impossible to avoid it. But there's one reason for life, gotta provide some supper. Gonna build a family just to watch someone destroy it. Do you really think you wanna get to know me better? Don't you see the drama? Don't you feel the pressure? Don't get me wrong, it would be my pleasure to sing a song that could remove your shoes and your sweater. Bartender, let me get a shot of bean, cause this girl over here is trying to get me out my jeans. And she doesn't seem to believe I'm just another thief. Came to take a piece and make you stutter when you breathe. Now girl, you're too smart to be a tour mark. Set the play correct from the start with your pure heart. And when you're all alone, I sing into your phone. If you don't know the words, you can make up your own. The first time she met the devil was at First Avenue. Went backstage with him into the dressing room. Sexy ego trip, taller than expected, about 6'3", seemed to thrive on his misery. Critical, observant, big words, sweaty hair, sunken eyes, and thick nerves. She said I'll make him smile for the simple fact that he needs it. I'll make him smile just so I can kill it and eat it. You look like you were built for me. You talk like you wanna steal my drink. You kiss like you already came, and that's a lift or pull a line for those without any game. It's like, damn baby, you know you can't save me, but you should still tell your people that you're leaving with the band. Maybe you can show me your hustle. Neither one of us will be so lonely if only you would come over here and hold me. I caught you trying to hide your smile behind your glass, but all of your secrets become a swing set when you laugh. And all of your regrets that you're carrying or burying don't mean a damn thing if there's nobody to share them with. We've been following each other all night now. We ought to be all over each other like right now. I don't like crowds, let's take flight now, cause that face that you make reminds me of my life now. Look at your face when all I could see was myself looking back at me. Reflection. And all I could do was think about sleeping next to you. Look at your face when all I could see was myself looking back at me. Reflection. And all I could do was think about sleeping next to you. Look at your face when all I could see was myself looking back at me. Reflection. And all I could do was think about sleeping next to you. Look at your face when all I could see was myself looking back at me. Reflection. And all I could do was think about sleeping next to you. Look at your face when all I could see was myself looking back at me. And all I could do was think about sleeping next to you. When all I could see was myself looking back at me.
A taste of honey, tasting much sweeter than wine. Do-do-do-do, do-do-do-do. I dream of your first kiss and then
7-second limit. All right, stop. It's like the 3-second rule on
That's right.
some food on the floor. You know, the Spotify station I've been listening to lately is like all that style of music. I don't know what you would call that. Sorry that I looked at you, Marty. But
Oldies. My dad is in the studio.
Yeah, just like like a malt shop jukebox. You know?
A malt. Can I get a malted?
Yeah.
A malted what?
Just puts me in a good mood, you know?
Yeah, no kidding.
Are we on the air? Yeah. Okay. So we're back. We're back on the Sour Hour.
Tasty.
Tasty.
Okay, sorry.
Speaking of tasty, we teased out this beer before the break,
Oh,
and
yes.
there was quite a buzz about this off air during the break. This is an orange-colored, marvelous, wonderful, interesting beer called Carrot King.
Oh, sorry.
You're
Oh,
up.
the Carrot
The
King.
Carrot King.
Yeah. How do you make this?
So it started out as a collaboration with Hop Culture. It's like a magazine in New York, and the label for it is their artist Sam Taylor. It is our sort of like lambic-inspired, non-spontaneous, long boil, raw wheats, aged hops, like 1 year aged beer, which we bottle condition with carrot juice. So there's like a local farm. It's actually kind of connected to the same farm that does the wheat we were talking about earlier, called Weiser Family Farms, and this is their carrots called Nantes carrots. They're orange carrots, and we get them in. We juice them like in house with like a little like home juicer, and then we have to bottle it the same day because what we do is add, instead of using honey like we normally do or like any other kind of sugar, we add the carrot juice directly to the beer, and then that's what re-ferments in the bottle to create the carbonation. And when you drink this beer, because the carrot juice like settles out so hard in the bottom, you have to like kind of shake it up real good before you pour it.
Yeah, when I brought this from the cold box and I handed it to Kevin, the first thing he did was sort of, I don't know,
Say, "Ow."
sacrilege. Yeah, I know, because I bumped his finger, his busted dad's finger. He turned it upside down, which, many people who pour, especially these bottle conditioned beers, are careful not to do. You see people sort of holding it at an angle very carefully. Kevin went straight upside down and gave it the full like whirlpool twist.
Yeah, we like one of the things I was worried about when we were sort of like doing research and like thinking about making this beer was how much yeast would be made like in the bottle, and like if it would clump up with the carrot juice and be like kind of like clumpy and nasty looking. So one thing we do is like not add any bottle conditioning yeast to this when we do it, so that we get like the lowest yeast count possible in the bottles. And I was surprised like the first couple times we did some tests that it really like fully integrates into the beer again, the carrot juice, and it's like really not chunky at all. It's just looks like orange beer.
I have this idea. I was daydreaming a little bit there. I was thinking, having sediment at the bottom of a bottle can present some kind of like consumer-facing problems.
Definitely.
Not everyone is gonna experience this beer exactly how you just let us experience
Yeah, exactly.
it.
And I imagine that there's a bunch of people who have opened it without shaking it and had no idea what was going on.
So
but we haven't really gotten any complaints about it.
So here's my idea.
Yeah.
And we're just giving this away for free.
Go on, I'm ready.
Next time, put on the label upside down.
Oh, I like that. That's cool. People turn around, look at it. It does say like mix the bottle on the label, but I like that. That's good thinking. I've actually been thinking about doing an upside down label just for fun.
Yeah.
But it would work really well for this.
Yeah.
Boom. You like that?
I love it.
Pretty good.
Man.
Huh? Yeah.
Yeah, trick people into
All
it.
right, let's stop
Yeah,
this.
that's
Let's
right.
stop the show. I'm gonna Costanza this. I'm out.
You could do on the upside down. Remember those pens where it would be the chick with the bikini, and you turn the pen upside down, and the bikini would drain away.
I
You
would
remember
never
that?
have such a pen.
Please, that would be something like that, like I don't know, like a brewer, a tasty, tasty
Yeah.
on the label, like the
Yeah.
2NA label.
Yeah,
exactly.
And then just have the things drain away. Incentivize people to turn the thing upside down.
Yeah, I like it. How much carrot juice do you have to?
It's
Because
a lot of
carrots are
juice,
sweet,
yeah.
but they're not like
Yeah.
sugar.
The sugar
so-
source, or like the carrots by themselves, are about 1040 specific gravity. And
Interesting.
that seems to be pretty consistent.
So you could
throughout the
brew a
different
beer
batches.
with all.
You
carrot
could do a
juice.
carrot wine, yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Is that a product that exists?
Carrot wine. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm sure it does. I'm surprised I haven't seen
Yeah.
it around Berkeley.
In local prisons, maybe they exist.
If I remember correctly, the carrot juice is about 25% of the volume at packaging. So I think
That's a lot.
I can't remember if it was 1 or 2 barrels, but it's like 400 pounds of carrots for I think 2 barrels.
Cool.
You know what's so cool
Oak
about
barrels.
this beer is I think it's the aged hops that's doing this, which is it's because there's like the carrot cake palate reminder. the spiciness from the aged hops comes across as carrot cake spice, like a cinnamon nutmeg thing, even though that beer doesn't contain this.
There's a lot of like weird like baking spice and like herbal notes in this, and it really like sort of changes and evolves like as you drink it, but also like from bottle to bottle. I usually get a lot of like spearmint flavor out of it. Some people have actually tried it and called it spicy, like a hot spice. Like hot spice.
Spice, yeah, that's what I'm. Oh, you mean heat?
Like
hot.
heat, yeah.
Wow. There's a lot going on in this beer,
Yeah.
but it's like for all those different descriptors that I'm trying to put myself in the listener's shoes. It's not. That sounds like a hot mess, kind of, but it's a delicious
Yeah, it
beer.
works really well.
Yeah, the acidity is really clean, and it's like despite all of these factors,
Layers, yeah.
layers. It's balanced.
Nothing kind of punches you in the face.
Right,
too
exactly.
much.
Yeah, for sure.
Really wonderfully done.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Should we conclude this show with this one, or do you want to do a different one
Let's
first?
do a different one. I
Okay, which
think.
one do you want?
Let's grab Fleur de Masamoto,
Do you want me? Okay,
the orange label.
Masamoto.
Yeah, it's an orange label.
You got it. Should you want me to read one of these listener questions and then go get that beer? What do you think, Jay?
You know what I think, Scott? I think this question and all questions are brought to you by Dr. Lambic and
What a
his team
pro.
at sourbeerblog.com. Check him out. He's got a bunch of great articles on Sour Beer Blog for a great written resource devoted to teaching you how to brew and blend sour beer at home. And now the Sour Beer Blog crew is opening up a new brewery. Brand, I'm just going to read it verbatim.
Maybe in the Roaring 20s we'll change
In the
our
Roaring
notes.
20s, yeah. It's a brewery and tap room in central Pennsylvania, Mechanicsburg, I believe, if memory serves.
It does.
Check them out, Mellow Mink Brewing at mellowmink.com. Might have to just get a phone call in with Dr. Lambic sometime to get an update.
It's been a while.
He's gone pro.
Yep.
Things are out and about. Things are rolling along.
Things are
and-
out like the money supply. Yep.
Yep, everything's out. Yeah. Yeah. So we should check back in. But yeah, let's hear this question.
This is from Zach from Cincinnati. Greetings. Have you ever encountered a mixed culture so dominated by lactopedio that the IBUs needed to be raised to a level where the beer started tasting overly bitter? Are there ways to keep a mixed culture balanced other than hops? Like maybe add more pure sack bread cultures? All right, so you guys can tackle that question, and I'm going to go get the Masamoto beer.
Cool. Yeah, I think for the rare barrel, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, Kevin. We had this exact problem, and I think a lot of sour beer brewers do. You start off, the beer's not sour enough. Year 2 or 3, beer gets more sour than you want. Year 4, 5, 6, you correct it with, a combination of a few things. Increasing the hopping rate being one, having a Saccharomyces or Brettanomyces primary fermentation that ferments to a lower gravity without PDO and lacto, so there's less sugar for it to acidify. And then third for us, and if you're barrel aging, we changed our barrel cleaning procedures to really just kill absolutely everything in there, where sometimes we wanted to encourage the things that were living still in the oak to influence future beers that made the beer a little bit more sour. So those would be my 3 recommendations. I'm not sure if this is a home brewer or professional brewer, so the oak barrel may or may not be an issue, but have you guys ran into... Oh, but I didn't actually address the hop bitterness part of that. So I don't know. I maybe like a lot of craft beer drinkers, I have a pretty high tolerance for bitterness. I feel like I think the amount of bitterness we're talking about in these beers, 25 to 35 IBU, something like that, is not a bitter beer to me. And especially in a beer that's going to age, I feel like IBU, or at least I don't know if the calculated or measured IBU goes down, but the perception to me at least definitely goes down over time. So haven't really run into that issue. And if I did, I would just say, if I had a beer that was too bitter, I would say let's age it longer. And I think those beers actually withstand the adverse effects of long aging better than a beer that is less hop. But Kevin, maybe you could comment on what's...
Yeah, I totally agree about like all those things. I really like our beers best like in the like 30-ish IBU range. I think that kind of hones in the acidity a lot, but also still gets you a little bit of acidity from the microbes. At least if you're using like not stuff that's like lab fresh. or else it'll just like die right away. But we also like our mixed cultures that we keep in carboys. We'll use that hoppy wort as like the top off wort for those, and I think that helps like sort of always keep the bitterness high and like the bacteria in check.
Sure.
And I also agree that like at 30-ish IBUs or even 40, like once the beer is 6 months old, the perception isn't 30 or 40 IBUs. But I think that that bitterness really adds to the perception of mouthfeel, like in the overall beer. I think if you have a beer 0 IBUs, like it's going to feel flabby, and a sour beer started at 30, 6 months in, isn't going to taste bitter really, but it's going to taste fuller. And I think that like even if you went like 70 or 80 IBUs, like you can make a good sour beer and it wouldn't be too bitter.
Yeah, I mean, one of my favorite new projects we've been working on is sending essentially like dry hopped hazy IPA to barrel with mixed culture for long-term aging. It turns into like just beautiful beer. Now that's not like the most bitter style, but I mean, there's a lot of hop.
Yeah, there's some beers that Highland Park Brewery in LA has made, which were started out as hazy IPAs, but they didn't really like the fermentation character of. They put it in barrels with mixed cultures, and they're like beautiful sour beers after a couple months.
Just amazing aromatics and
Yeah, really fruity.
yeah, I think I've spoke about this on the show before, but you know, we have at times, you know, done sour beers. We bring them to tank right before packaging. We'll do a new dry hop edition and then package it. I actually prefer the beers that kind of go through a normal Saccharomyces for clean fermentation, get dry hopped like they're about to come out, you know, next week. But instead of being released, they go to oak barrels for aging, bring them back and package them. No second dry hop, tons of hop aromatic flavor, but nuanced enough to be different than an IPA. It's these just kind of crazy aromas that you get from mixed culture fermentation.
I also think that with mixed culture primary fermentations, it's important to have like a healthy yeast, like as you're doing your primary fermentation. Whenever we've done stuff that was like, you know, barrel dregs, that was like older, at least a couple months old yeast in a barrel, it takes like multiple days to like kick off the primary fermentation, and I never ever like how the beer turns out, and they get way more acidic. So I'd say like we always try and have our mixed culture carboys topped with beer like a week or two before we're going to pitch them into barrels.
Gotcha. Cool. So hopefully that answers. What was his name?
That was Zach from Cincinnati. Thank you for the email, Zach. We
Thanks,
appreciate
Zach.
it a lot.
Yeah, and all you listeners, all you lazy listeners,
Ya bums.
just subscribe. Thank you for subscribing, and don't do anything else. Write us an email.
There you go.
Ask us a question. We love, and you'll hear your name on the air. Maybe we'll make
Yes.
fun of you. Who knows? So we're gonna do our show break in a little bit, but before we do that, we're gonna get to one last beer, which is Fleur de. I don't recognize this name. Masamoto? What?
Yeah.
I've never heard of that.
What is that?
So tell us about this one.
Yeah, this is our collaboration with Homage Brewing. This is actually the third batch of it we've done. And what we do is come together, like blend some of our barrels together, and then we split those. We combine the beers together, split them, and then we fruit the beer separately at our facilities with our own mixed cultures, and we bottle them separately and release them as a sort of a co-branded collaboration. And it's kind of fun. What we did, like with the label design, is we sent our two artists the exact same like description of what we wanted, and they have like completely different vibes. But yeah, Masamoto is a farm in Central California, in just south of Fresno, I think. And they're like really special to me. We have a really close relationship with the farmer, David Masamoto, and we make probably a dozen different beers every year with their fruits, and go up once a year. We actually go up and pick some of the fruit there with them too, and that fruit that we pick always goes into this beer.
What else are they growing?
They only grow peaches and
Oh, that's it?
Yeah,
Okay.
and actually, just for the first time this year, they have some apricots. So we made the first apricot beer with them this year too. And the variety in this beer is the Grand Nectarines, which is like my favorite variety from them.
Yeah, we've got some too.
Yeah.
It's great. I love it. It's just it's a strikingly familiar.
Yeah, you
flavor, for
recognize the
sure.
flavor immediately if you taste one of these beers.
Definitely, yeah.
And there's a lot of breweries, and especially mostly in California, using their fruit. I think that there is probably at least a dozen breweries like that kind of change every year. But there's a guy named Chris Kuroga who sort of is like the middleman with them, who facilitates getting the fruit to all the breweries, and so it's whatever breweries he picks to use it.
Yeah.
But-
If your name is Chris, you're in the business of selling fruit. I've learned in this podcast. Yeah, it's an interesting thing. I mean, I think you guys do a really good job of giving shout outs to all the farms and the agricultural side of things
Yeah, I think it's
that you
really
work with.
important.
But at the same time, in the brewing industry, we've talked to other guests on this show that are like, I'm not going to tell you where I got these, the fruit.
Super,
like
super special.
to your point about, let's see, what were we talking about? It was one of I think it was the oats from
It's a
the first beer
Hatchet
that they didn't have, like a good harvest or something like
Mhm.
that. But it's also a possibility that if
Someone
you're a
else comes
brewer, and you kind of start promoting these farms, that other brewers will kind of buy more, and then you won't
Yeah.
get any. So how do you, I guess, from a philosophical standpoint, approach that issue?
I don't know. I think like with all things, I like try not to take it too seriously and like value like companionship and like working together with people above, being an asshole. But
I haven't learned that lesson yet.
Yeah, go back
But,
and listen
like-
to the episodes where someone doesn't share it, and you'll know Kevin
Yeah, right.
thinks that guy is an asshole.
oh no, that's not, no.
I'm just joking.
But like to be honest, like we just have a really close relationship with these farms and with Chris, and we know that they're always gonna hook us up with whatever we want.
For sure. That's great.
This beer, obviously it's terrific. The nectarines come through and they're beautiful. It does have the sort of cellador house flavor, if you want to call it that,
Yeah.
going on because the sweet tart thing we talked about earlier, presumably because of the honey.
Yeah, I think that there's
fermentation.
some of that flavor in some of our like base beers too, but I think that a lot of it comes from the honey, and I guess who really knows, but yeah.
Well, so I wonder, have you do you still have some of your first batches in fridges, and are you still
Yeah.
opening stuff that's years old at this point?
Yeah, every once in a while.
Are you? How's it holding up? I guess, and is the honey re-fermentation playing a factor in flavors years down the road?
I don't know. I haven't really noticed it or tried stuff enough recently. I don't have good data on that.
Fair enough. I mean, you're only we're coming up on 4
Yeah.
years. This is
Yeah.
not very long. Yeah, fair enough.
There's something going on.
But I
there.
do I
Soccer
do
game.
distinctly remember like those flavors always being present like from the beginning.
Mm.
So I don't really know how they're holding up in the bottle.
I think if you're talking specifically about that, like
Sweet.
chalky, sour,
Mhm.
sweet tart kind of thing.
Yeah.
I first noticed it when we got at the Rare Barrel. A particular mixed culture that I'll just say was sort of born from Belgian goose that we propped up. That's the first time it got introduced into the brewery, and it is just strictly associated with that mixed culture now.
Okay.
That makes sense to me.
Which is, it makes sense, but I also can't explain it at all.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't know what the answer is. But you like make these inferences, but who really knows?
Magic bugs, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, how does it make like a chalky
Yeah,
flavor?
right.
I don't know.
But it does. Are you, and you've only used it in a few different beers,
No,
right?
it's everywhere now.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
For sure. So it's pretty prevalent throughout our beers.
There you go.
How are we doing on time?
We're about ready for a show break if we're done with this beer.
I wanted to ask just one more short question. I noticed on the side of this bottle that there's some writing, like
like handwritten.
blend number and
Oh yeah,
bottled.
I saw that.
And
It's from July.
boy, I mean, looks nice on one bottle, but how many of these? That seems like a pain in the ass.
It's not ideal, and it's something that we sort of like played on and off with. There's like a practical like business side to all this, and like printing labels like in really small amounts like doesn't really always make sense.
Yeah.
And it's, like this beer, for like a couple different reasons, we're limited in how much we can make of it every year, and so having to print just a couple hundred labels, if we know we're going to do it again next year, we'll just like print a bigger batch without the what's written on the bottle is the blend number and the bottling date.
Yeah.
And like in theory, you could say, oh, we'll just like look forward and print the next bottling date, but like it never ever works out that way. The
Sure.
bottling date would be multiple months off. So it's not something I do very often anymore, but yeah. these bottles are all like handwritten by Sarah.
And how many
by
bottles?
by his wife.
How many bottles were in this? Like for this particular? Beer?
About 500.
Okay.
Okay.
It's not,
So not crazy.
so bad, but that's got to put on the audiobook for that.
That's right. Yeah, and you got to have content absorption while you do the tedium. I forgot. Forgive me if I missed it. How many barrels did you guys do last year for context?
Like our brewery.
Ish. Yeah.
400.
Okay. There you go.
Yes. That's a lot coming from a space that small,
Yeah.
especially from this style of beer.
Yeah. We for like the space we have and the amount of barrels, we pump it out pretty quick.
And you can find your beer on tap around LA?
Yeah, definitely. On tap at a lot of bars in LA and, sort of intermittently throughout all of California, and bottles all over the place also.
Yes, we do carry it here.
And on our website.
Earmuffs, Jay, at the Hop Grenade. You will find Celador bottles.
Wearing
And
headphones.
the,
And earmuff.
the occasional, man, I don't know if we've had it on tap yet.
I don't know either, but yeah, I'm
Really?
sure that at some point it'll be on tap.
Yeah.
At
feel
this
like
bar
I've-
called
I
the Hop
feel
Grenade.
I feel like
Yeah,
I've seen it.
we might have. If I might have missed it because it probably went really quickly. But yeah, I'm pretty consistently in recent months. I'm seeing your bottles, which is great.
Yeah.
Yeah, at my specific direction. I was like, whenever they're available, please grab stuff. So your website is
CeladorAles.com.
okay, and you can if you want to sign up for. You do like
We
once
have a wait list on our
year?
website
Okay.
for the membership, and then we almost always have a couple bottles up there, and we ship within California.
There you go.
Wow. How many years have we been doing this, Scott?
6 and
Okay.
change.
Usually I leave that question for the end of the second show.
I know,
Oh.
but you're right. Okay,
So,
you're right. You're
just-
right. Sorry,
just-
I'll cut it out in post, and you can ask again.
No,
after the
no.
second show. Okay.
And thankfully, Marty had already asked it, so I knew all the answers.
Oh,
So
there
it was
you go.
great. Off air.
The off-air Marty comments.
Speaking of the second show, which exists, Scott, we're going to keep Kevin a little longer. He's been gracious enough to share his time and his beer, so we thank him for that. Thanks to Scott and Bevo for being here.
You're welcome on her behalf.
Yeah. Thanks to all the listeners, all the sponsors of the show. We really appreciate all of you. Until next time, stay sour.
The Brewing Network.
I'm looking through you. Where did you go? I thought I knew you. What did I know? You don't look different, but you have.
Spend all your time listening to all the
And
shows.
email us once a week with questions and leave a 5-star review with a long and funny review.
That's all we ask.
Yeah,
It's not-
that's it, and you get this whole show for free. So get it together, guys.
Come on, man.
Come on. And thanks for listening. So, yeah, I'm getting angry at the tops now.
Yeah, it's berating the audience is the number one rule of podcasting.
number
make
one.
sure you berate
So I'm
them.
podcaster of the decade, Scott.
Self-appointed.
Yep. We've got some more beer open. This is a really interesting beer. Like I probably could say that about every beer we've opened so far. But this is Peche what?
Peche Fumé.
Peche Fumé. Oh, double E on the Fumé.
Fumé. It's French, Fancy as
Oh, I know. I was just feigning ignorance, so I would be more relatable to
smoked
the
peaches.
audience.
Typical American ignorance.
This beer is crazy. Tell us what is going on.
Yeah,
here.
so this is a smoked peach beer. Like we mentioned earlier, like we're a real small team, and we get lots and lots of fruit every year. So we often just have friends and like club members in helping us cut. And we like did a barbecue for them once, and at the end of it, like cut open some peaches because we were processing peaches, threw some on the barbecue, and just ate them. And like I thought it was a really really cool flavor, and it sort of inspired this beer. So the next season we got a bunch of peaches, and we also got a bunch of peach wood. It wasn't from the same farm; it was from a different farm. And we used about half of the peaches smoked in like a hot smoker for like maybe 30 minutes, and half of them we like burnt to a crisp like on an open fire grill with the same wood. And we added that all into a blend of, I think it was like 1 barrel of like red sour that was in whiskey barrels, and one like sort of like blonde mixed culture saison base, and aged it for a couple months and bottle conditioned it. And this was our last club beer of 2018. So it's about a year in the bottle.
Yeah, see on it, it's a single barrel syndicate release, and this is a nice label as well. What went into like the decision to go burnt on the peaches rather than
Just
more
smoked?
smoked or roasted or whatever?
Probably because the inspiration was from like burning the peaches in the beginning, and I just like really really love burnt foods, like burnt pizza crust or like burnt anything, and I thought that would be a fun component to it.
You know, I know that's a thing. Like my mom loves that. I do not. Where's your palate at for burn things, Jay?
Well, I'm a great chef, so I don't burn. No, I'm just
Oh, I'm a terrible chef, and I burn things a lot. Oh.
you learn to love.
What's up?
Oh, I lost all sound. I thought you turned me off.
Oh no.
Oh,
You're-
there we go. I just unplugged myself.
Do you like burn things?
I do.
You do. See, yeah. It's
Yeah.
some
Yeah,
people's-
I also like burnt
You
things.
do.
Yeah.
Man, you guys are crazy.
No, I mean,
amazing.
but like, there's a hard line on toast. Burned toast is inedible.
It's pretty bad.
Yeah, that's true.
Really? What is
But
the-
like pizza crust that's like black is like the best thing ever.
So good.
Round table pizza, they like go over like the crust bump with the cheese, and it goes over, and then the cheese burns on the bottom.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Is
the
it-
best.
is it-
Slightly burned grilled cheese sandwiches also
Yes.
so good.
So a little char makes sense to me, but the like black burn thing doesn't.
Like meat too, like a little like
Wow.
crispy outside.
Yeah, of course. Yes, the seared outside. Yes, but not
Cheese and
burned.
meat. Cheese and meat. If it's black, it's great.
Hmm,
Yeah.
man. Okay.
I
Well,
mean, the whole thing is black. No,
I like burned marshmallows too.
so are
Yeah,
you the
the
person
inside's still good.
that
My
t-
marshmallow
torches
catches on
it?
fire
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
I blow it out and then I
Right.
eat it.
yeah. It's
If you
getting
go
well
like
done.
on our Instagram, like back to December 2018, you can see some like videos of us, burning the shit out of them.
I mean, when I was at the brewery, we made a beer called Autumn Maple.
She's probably a little bit before that because it was bottled in December, so it would have been like August or September, probably August.
And we would say we put roasted yams in the beer, but really they were just like fucking burnt. That's like throw them in the mash tun and like mash them all up. But that was a huge pain in the
That's
ass.
cool.
Shout out to Autumn Maple.
Yeah, so this is the first one we did that was smoked, and then right after this we also did a smoked kabocha squash beer with like a real dark sour beer.
Smoked squash.
Yeah, it was a polarizing beer to say the least. Like people either really really loved it or like really really hated it. It tasted kind of like barbecue sauce, but like
Really?
in a good way. I thought it was
In a
really
good
cool. And we did it again this year. We did like one barrel batch, and then we did smoked figs. We bottled it this
Yeah.
week. That's all the smoked beers we've done.
Wow, that's cool. And, smoked figs to me. If I rank those in order of how much it makes sense to do,
Yeah.
number 1, smoked figs. Number 2, the smoked peaches, and number 3, the squash.
Yeah.
When you're production limited to about 400 BBL per year, and we'll get into this in a second, but it's all oak barrels and barrel ferments. I find at the rare barrel sometimes we have to be very judicious in what types of beer we make, because if you have a wild hair of an idea,
Yeah.
and you make 2 oak barrels of it, that's 1% of your production or something like that.
Yeah, right.
So how do you deal with that? Like, how much of this beer did you make, for
I don't
instance?
know, like to a detriment. Like I think I treat this as like an art project more than a business, like too often, and so I don't really take that into consideration. If I think there's like a really cool thing to do, like we'll do at least a barrel of it, like no matter what. It's like those kabocha squashes weren't even my idea. That was one of the guys that works for me who actually helps us source a bunch of fruit. I think he's sold fruit to you guys. His name's Adam Romney,
Mhm.
Pot Produce. He works with me in the brewery too. And him and the other guy that worked for me, like both came from food side, which like I prefer, like in the guys that are going to help me on the brewing side.
Sure.
Like they have really good like ideas. And so it was Adam's idea to do the squashes. And I was a little skeptical, but I like how it turned out.
Yeah, that sounds really cool. Then what do we
Here's
have
this
here,
is the
Scott?
this is the Instagram video that Kevin described of them torching the peaches on the barbecue. It's a charcoal barbecue,
Mhm.
and
There's
they're
a
halved
ripping
peaches.
fire,
Yeah.
a roaring. Some would say.
Peaches roasting on an open fire.
I see flipping them like along the way. Does that matter in this case, where you're
I guess not.
incinerating them?
It definitely burnt our arms.
Yeah, you're taking great care in flipping them.
So yeah, and then there's some pictures too with the video, and it's
That's-
there's some really
That's
really
a
good char
gorgeous
going
picture. That looks like it should be in like a
here. On
food,
the-
a food magazine.
yeah, totally.
That's great. How many likes did that get? A bunch, I bet.
We're looking at. It just says. Jim from Firestone Walker.
Well, that's all that matters.
He liked it, and
That's all that
so did
matters.
others.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, I was asking about volume. So, but I guess this beer is a single barrel. That's kind of the
Yeah, 2 barrels, I think.
2 barrels.
Yeah, and like for the clubs,
2 BBL
2
or
oak barrels.
2
yeah.
oak barrels.
For the club, this is one of our club beers, and for that, like at least 1 or 2 of the beers that we do throughout the year, I want to do something like crazy and like ideally something never done before. Like I like the idea of that a lot.
It's getting harder and harder.
Creating something like completely new. It is getting harder and harder.
Yeah.
And
So, so the single barrel syndicate beers aren't all.
yeah, the
one
first year,
oak barrel.
they were a single barrel, like they were all 1 barrel, and then since then, yeah, it's grown. To
You
its
realized
size,
you
right?
could make money
We did.
selling more beer.
Yeah, one of the releases we did this year was all magnums. So that was like 900 magnums. The package was definitely more than a barrel.
Wow. How'd that turn out?
Really great. Yeah, it was a major pain in the ass. Like we're not going to do it ever again, I don't think. But yeah, it worked out really well. It was actually one of my favorite beers we've ever made. I brought a smaller bottle of it today. Too.
Oh, not a Magnum, though.
Not a magnum.
All right. Well, you can go.
If I can make a quick note on this
Yes.
beer, I want to. There's so many more I would like to try, but so it's interesting because when I didn't, you said smoke beer, but I didn't really remember. I smelled it and I was like, oh, is this like a, what is the style that has it kind of has acetone characteristic to it, but in a pleasant way. The style of is it is it an oud Brewing kind of thing?
Oh, like more acetic.
That'll have
Acetic. I'm sorry. Yes, not
acetic
acetone. Wrong.
but that's very closely related
Yeah.
to ethyl acetate, the acetone you're talking
Yeah.
about.
For sure. So when I got that on the aroma, and then I was like, oh, interesting, and then I tasted it, and at first glance, I was like, oh yeah, and then that immediately went away, and I was like, oh no,
Yeah.
it's smoke.
Yeah.
Do you
Yeah.
guys experience that correlation?
There's a tiny bit of
Yeah.
acetic character in this beer for sure, and I don't know if that's correlated to smoke at all. I mean, what do you think?
Oh, I don't know. I don't think so. But I mean, I think I could definitely see like the phenolic character of smoke
Right.
coming across that way.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had the similar confusion, and then once I tasted it, my brain like matched the two
Together.
together.
Yeah, right.
essentially.
Yeah, because the aroma is mostly smoke and like in a kind of weird way, and the flavor you get that kind of like cooked peach, like kind of silky like mouthfeel
Yeah.
from it.
Super interesting. Sorry, this is gonna be dead air for a second while.
Yeah, while we
take
both
more.
drink it, it's really wonderful. I mean, smoke and acid seems like 2 compounds that are a challenge to make work together. Is that fair to say? I mean,
I think so. I don't know. I can't think of any like dishes that would put those together like in the food world, but seems fair to say.
I mean, well, it is doable.
I don't know, the
This
hot
is a
sauce. The
pleasant
hot sauce
combo.
I'm making right now
Oh,
would
yeah.
beg to differ.
Are you still making sourdough bread too?
No, flour just gets fucking everywhere.
Yeah.
You know?
Yes, it does.
And then if there's any liquid like that, it's like cement.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So the mess was just like debilitating.
It's funny. My sister lives on Maui. She's got a farm out there, and she's been brewing kombucha. And actually, she's been working a lot with. Well, I don't need to go into this on the air, but the point is, whenever she goes anywhere, she always cooks everything. Like she's, chef, farmer, and she walks around barefoot all the time. It's Maui, and she's
a hippie.
she's a mess. She's a hippie. Yeah, exactly. But the point is, you always know when she's been somewhere because there's a thin coating of flour on everything in the house.
It's like having a pet.
Yeah, no, really. Pets are little less messy, but generally, yes.
Awesome.
Yeah. Okay, what beer's next?
I guess let's do this this bottle we got out.
Let's pop it while it's here, and then we'll do
Tease?
our break. Yeah, sure.
I'm kind of losing track of time because I'm just really into these beers.
Yeah,
but-
me too. I think we can do this one and then take our break.
Okay,
Yeah.
let's do it.
So-
So this is
yeah.
while Scott is opening it, this is an interesting presentation. So this is
Very.
this is a beer that is in like a squat kind of bottle, which is a clear bottle, and
It's almost like a little mini spirit bottle.
And I believe it's
Yeah, it is. It's
still.
like a 375 milliliter clear like whiskey bottle. It's a still beer.
So what's this
still-
called,
Ah.
and what kind of beer is it?
We call it Jackson Ranch. It's sort of like loosely named off my dog Jackson, but I also wanted a name that kind of like evoked whiskey. It reminded me of like Rowan's Creek or something like that. Yeah. And it's a red, like a rye based red beer that was aged in second use whiskey barrels for 8 months. and then we did a blend of 2 barrels, and then we split that blend back into 2 fresh whiskey barrels for 8 more months, and then we bottled those barrels separately. And so one of them was a Knob Creek. The one we have here is a Knob Creek barrel that I think was like 13 or 14 years aged whiskey. And the other one was a High West double rye barrel, which was like 9 or 10 years old.
Wow.
Whiskey. And the idea was to like make a beer that looked and tasted as much like rye whiskey as we could do. And we actually, when we released this beer, we did like a whole cocktail day, and me and the 2 other guys that work for me that came from food, we each came up with 3 cocktails, and we used this beer as the base, and we made like cocktails with ice, shaken stuff, stirred stuff in coupe glasses or cocktail glasses. And we had a really great time, and seemed like a lot of people came out and seemed like they really enjoyed it. This particular variant is the one we all kind of like a little bit more. It's the High West one. Or sorry, it's the Knob Creek version, and it's a little more sherry-like than the other one. You get like a lot of these like oxidative, like dark fruit characters. Lots of sherry characters.
Mm-hmm.
Very like rich caramel, but not just caramel. Like we were just talking about smoked beers, but it's like a not burnt, just like a over caramelized caramel kind of.
It's like molasses raisin.
Yeah, definitely.
What? So you wanted it to taste like whiskey as much as possible. Did that have the influence on the way you presented this beer as well in that bottle? And still?
Definitely, absolutely. I think about that a lot, and like the way you present something, like the color of the beer, or like the.
I mean, not enough. You didn't think of the upside down label. Though,
That's true. Yeah, you got me there. But like the shape of the bottle, or like the type of the bottle and the label design, like all those things to me are like really important to like, especially for these like more interesting projects that we do.
You even like, it's Jackson Ranch, big letters, and then there's a JR like in the little
like
featured spot of the label, which is
Which camera?
which is totally just like, this is not a beer status.
Yeah. I want to trick you a little bit.
Yeah.
Put it on you now.
Oh, okay. This guy right?
Yeah. It's amazing. And I think you guys accomplished the goal.
And,
I think it's
yeah.
very whiskey-like.
And we took this out of the fridge like at least an hour ago. When we serve it in a tasting room, we don't chill it at all. We serve it at room temperature. Actually, we serve it in those like real fancy like Glencairn whiskey glasses.
Yeah, those are cool.
And yeah, if you like are interested in getting it and making cocktails, we put all the recipes up on our website too. Obviously, you have to come to the brewery. We still have a few bottles left of it. Yeah, it was a real fun project.
Did you come?
Yes.
You came to get the whiskey?
Yeah, Bevo's in on this one.
Wow.
It's
Let's all stop and.
Yeah, everyone watch Beef sip.
This is like a rare moment.
Yeah, it's got acidic character for sure.
Yeah.
You like it?
Yeah,
Great.
Yay.
That's like 10 GABF medals right there. Bevo getting up and walking in to try a beer.
That's the award everyone really wants.
Honored.
Yeah, I've never seen it myself in the wild.
It very rarely.
Have you guys ever done a still beer?
We just did. We do this thing for our club. Any member who's been in the club for 5 years will do like an additional kind of allocated beer. I'd say free, but I guess once you buy the
Included
club
with the
membership, it's all what do I get? And it's all. But it's a bonus beer, and it's only for those people who have been in for 5 years. And it's called, the first year we did it was last year. It's called We Are Because of You. And it worked out really well because we made our spontaneous beer, and our idea was to do it served still in the bottle, and it worked out where we just called the second year beer We Are Still Because of You. And
Nice. That's perfect.
it worked out great. And lambic is a style that can be served still, so that was pretty cool. But it was in our regular bottle. One thing that concerned me about doing that was the stability of that beer. Have you seen, how old is this beer? Have you seen any changes? You serve it at ambient temp, but do you store it at ambient temp, or how does that all work?
We stored it at ambient temp. It's been in bottles for maybe 5 or 6 months. With this particular beer, I don't worry about it too much. So there's a lot of oxidative characters in the beer, right? And typically in sour beer making, that would equate to like lots of acetic acid and velocity, right? And the reason why I don't think this beer has a lot of that is because it's got a lot of alcohol. It's 10%, and also it's got a lot of like dark malts, and so all of the I think anything alive in it is dead, and so
Anything alive in it is dead. That's really deep.
yeah,
Interesting.
that's right. That's not the right way to say that. Anything that could be alive in it is dead.
Yeah.
Like all the yeast that was there, not living anymore. And so instead
Murder.
of turning into like acetic acid, you actually can get these like sherry type notes and like
Yeah.
oxidative notes in the sour beer. And because of that, because it's already oxidated, I don't worry too much about oxygen. We actually tell people like they can open it and drink it over a couple days and like see how it changes. If it was like a younger, lighter beer, I might worry more about it. But yeah,
And this is just like sort of a random question, but so with the, and I don't know if I mentioned this before, but there's like a cork, removable and replaceable cork stopper on top.
Right.
When I usually see this, in like a spirit or something,
yeah,
there's like
a wrap.
a wrap or something. Is that necessary? Is that
I don't
just
know.
for show?
Like, I think that I don't know if there's like laws around that or anything.
Maybe it's
but
like an open container related.
it seemed like
type
a little
law.
bit too much work for me to do, and that's the only reason
That sounds right. That sounds correct. Yeah.
I didn't think about it much past that.
Well, awesome. This beer is a triumph, and what a roller coaster of flavor this has been. I don't even know if we've had such a variety on any show so far. I mean, this has been the depth of flavor, the variety. It's awesome. I
Yeah.
feel like I'm wrapping up to end the show.
It's true. Yeah, we have more to go.
I was compelled to say that.
Yeah,
so.
you're right. You're right. It has been a roller coaster, and of flavors that like are not, you don't think of them melding. That's not the first thing that comes to mind. Molasses, raisin, that's the oxidized type of spirit thing.
Yeah.
With acidity, you don't think of those things going together, but they've been melding nicely in these varietals.
Yeah, I'm gonna continue to talk like Kevin's not here. I think what he said about this being an art project, I'm feeling that. I'm feeling that going through this tasting. So it's really quite.
I mean,
something.
as a consumer that doesn't have to make any numbers for the art project work, it's freaking wonderful.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
It's great.
That would be amazing. That's like the goal, is like do anything without regard to what it costs.
Right.
Every brewer's goal,
that's
and
called a hobby.
yeah. every pro brewer's goal is to realize they made a huge mistake and go back to home brewing.
Exactly. Yeah.
But I mean, it is interesting. And I know we need to get to a break, but it's like I guess like in a lot of fields where there's a way to do things that's like 100% legit and unimpeachable. Sorry, hot topic. That's just like here. This is like, oh, you're really staying like true to the game and everything. And then there's like 0%, which is like selling out completely and being corporate and all that stuff.
Right.
And every brewer has their threshold on either side.
Yeah.
But the closer you can get to just like
I'll say
just don't give a fuck that's the dream.
that is a dream. Like really, I'm very, very, very much like want to give thanks to like the people that support us too, because like we can only do it because they take the risk to like spend this 375 milliliter bottle is like $25. So like they take the risk
as
to
it should be.
Yeah, they take the risk to spend the money on it and like support us, and like I really am grateful for that.
Yeah. And just actually just thinking on that note, how expensive the beer is, which I think is that's worth it for sure. But to that end, I appreciate that you guys do these cocktails and post the recipes. I like the taste of whiskey, so I can just have it straight. I would encourage people to enjoy this.
Make a cocktail with it.
No. I'd
No?
say without doing the cocktail.
Oh,
not to go against what you guys have posted.
Oh, yeah.
But I think there's so much to experience with this that, because I mean, making you don't make cocktails with like the best whiskey in the world,
Yeah,
right?
I know. Can I get a Grey Goose with orange juice? Like,
Yeah, and
okay.
to that point, like the beer wasn't made to be like blended. It's something fun that we did. Like
Yeah.
it's made to be experienced the way it is.
And I would recommend people
Okay.
do that
Yep.
for sure. All right, break time.
Yes.
Let's take a break. This is the Sour Hour, I think. Yeah, still. Yeah, on
Is
the
it?
Brewing Network.
from the gutter. They look me up and down a bit and turn to each other.
I say I don't like cricket. I love it. I don't like cricket. I love it. Don't you walk through my words, you got to show some respect. Don't you walk through my words, cause you ain't heard me out yet.
He said, I like it, I want it, I'll take it off your hands and you'll be sorry. You cross me, you better understand that you're alone. A long way from home.
And I say I don't like reggae. I love it. I don't like reggae. I love it. Don't you quack me style. Don't you queer me bitch. Don't you walk through my words, cause you ain't heard me out yet. Would you like something harder? She said, I got it, you want it. My harvest is the best, and if you try it, you like it. You wanna really dreadlock holiday. And I say, don't like Jamaica. I love her. Don't like Jamaica. I love her. Don't you walk through her words, you got to show some respect. Don't you walk through her words, cause you ain't heard her out yet. I don't like cricket. I love it. Dreadlock holiday. I don't like reggae. I love it. Dreadlock holiday. Don't like Jamaica. I love her. Dreadlock.
Mr. Kirk, Dexter's in school. I'm afraid he's not, Miss Fishmore. Dexter's truancy problem is way out of hand. The Baltimore County School Board have decided to expel Dexter from the entire public school system.
Mr. Kirk, I'm as upset as you to learn Dexter's truancy, but surely expulsion is not the answer.
I'm afraid expulsion is the only answer. It's the opinion of the entire staff that Dexter is criminally insane. Insane.
That boy needs therapy. Psychosomatic. That boy needs therapy. Psychosomatic. That boy needs therapy. Lie down on the couch. What does that mean? You're a nut. You're crazy in the coconut. What does that mean? That boy needs therapy. I'm gonna kill you. That boy needs therapy. Granny Kazoo, let's have it, Chief. How when I count three? That boy needs therapy.
He was white as a sheet.
And he also made false teeth.
business continues below.
Did I ever tell you the story about
Cowboys, big midgets, Indians, and frontiers of I felt strangely hypnotized. I was in another world, the world of 20,000 girls.
rectangles?
Doing up optometrist, a man with the golden eyeball.
And tighten your buttocks.
Or juice on your chin. I promised my girlfriend.
The violin.
Frontier psychiatry. Let's have it, you. Now when I count three. That boy needs therapy.
He was white as a sheet.
And he also made false teeth.
Can you think of anything that talks other than a person?
A bird? Yeah.
Sometimes a parrot talks. Yeah, some birds are funny when they talk. Can you think of anything else?
Hey, it's Topher from Wildfire Brewing and Blending.
Today.
Yeah, okay. G'day, mates. It's Topher from Wildfire Brewing and Blending in Sydney, Australia. You're listening to the Sour Hour on the Brewing Network.
Oh yeah. The way he says sour hour.
Sour hour.
Is so good.
He's American, just for the record.
Living in Sydney, Australia.
Yeah.
Our great guest 3 shows ago, something like that.
2 shows. It was John Rowley, and then Wildflowers, the shows before that.
We've had a nice streak of in-studio guests.
Yes,
haven't we?
it's been wonderful.
Yeah. It was great. So Topher came just for the show from Sydney, Australia. John came from New Mexico.
Yes.
In and out on the same day.
That's right.
And Kevin's coming from SoCal.
Yeah, but Kevin spent and not only is he coming from SoCal, he's spending the night in San Francisco. I mean, he didn't even do the 1-day trip.
That's fun. That's just fun times.
Yes.
Yeah. Sorry, I just thought of a San Francisco thing, but that's not.
Gotta say it now.
It's not appropriate for the. I'll tell you off air.
Don't forget, make a note next to your meth note.
Yeah, reminder to smoke meth. which sounds like it's the story that I was going to
Jay
tell.
has written on. Jay is using a coaster
This is
in
getting really
front of him
convoluted now.
for notes. that
Shorthand notes.
Shorthand notes exactly. And one of the which
Yeah, you
camera
can
is
hold
on
it up,
Beef?
yeah.
Which camera is? It's Jay's camera. This one here. I don't know if you guys can see. Smoke meth.
Yep.
What is that?
Sometimes I forget. No, I was going to ask Kevin about the method he used to smoke
method.
the fruit from the Fumet beer. But there's not a lot of space on this
Coaster.
coaster.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Russian River Brewing Company.
Sure.
Cheap asses.
What have you done for me lately? No, I'm just joking. I've lost all sense of time and space.
Next beer.
Yeah.
We
Thank
have this
you.
in our glasses.
That's why you're here, Scott.
Yeah, it is the Dead Crush. Describe.
This one is a like wine hybrid beer. So, I guess we have kind of a theme, like trying to like make flavors from other things. But this one, trying to make like a beer that was as much wine flavored as possible. So it's, roughly almost 50% Malbec juice mixed with sour beer.
Slightly less for legal.
Exactly, 49.999-ish. And so the grapes we got in, we have a little like hand crank grape crusher that we use. And we have some open top puncheons that we use for open fermentations. And we use that to sort of like spontaneously ferment the Malbec grapes for a couple days. And then we press those off with like a real fancy, just like homebrew, like we just like strained them basically like a mesh strain. And use like the juice and the skins for two separate beers. This was the juice beer. And then it was mixed with a beer that had been aging in Malbec barrels for like almost a year. And then we put like the blend back into the Malbec barrels for a couple months and then bottle conditioned it.
Now, was that just a happy coincidence that you had the Malbec barrels, or did you you're like, oh, we need to get Malbec grapes, next year, it had already been in there for a year.
Yeah,
so.
we'd had the Malbec barrels, and then when we had the opportunity to buy grapes, Malbec was like one of the three options we had, and so like it just made sense to kind of play into that flavor. Also, the Malbec barrels we got like not fully neutral because they were like Brett infected at the winery. So you got like kind of a lot of the Malbec character and like a lot of oak character in the beer too, which kind of plays into like the red winey nature of it too.
Yeah, did they just come full of Brett infected wine and you guys just bottled it and drank
No,
it?
they came empty, unfortunately. I would love to drink some Brett infected wine.
Yeah.
Did we go through your barrel treatment process? And I'm sure it varies, right? Because like you're not going to treat that Malbec barrel the same as or I don't know. You describe it.
Yeah, I mean, if it's something like that, I don't think we rinsed those at all. We just kind of filled them right away. We did a lot in the beginning too, but after I realized that most wineries are sending this out like with a bunch of sulfur like burning in them, like we rinsed them like once at least for the first use, and then between uses we'll do like a long hot water rinse at 185 degrees. We don't have steam or anything fancy like that yet, so we always clean our barrels as much as we can, but just with hot water between uses.
Yeah, it's a good way to go about it. You mentioned the open top fermenters. Do you guys use that for like your regular fermentations that aren't having to do with wine, or what are
so we have two like 400 liter puncheons we use for open fermentation, so we can get like 3 oak barrels full out of like a batch that we usually fill like 8 or 9 barrels, and we sort of use them almost exclusively for like one brand that we do called Breeze Blocks, which is like a draft only mixed culture like open fermented thing, and it's one of my favorite beers we have around. It's like the open fermentation gives it so much more like tropical fruit and like pineapple-y flavors.
Consistently,
why?
Yeah. Why? How is it consistent? Do you think it's just the same? Yeah. Why?
I think it's just our mixed cultures in conjunction with like lots of oxygen during primary fermentation.
Interesting.
But I don't really know the science behind it.
We're gonna have to try that out because we just had recently one of our puncheons. One of the heads met an unfortunate end. Let's say that.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's another off-air story.
I highly recommend it. I think like the flavors out of it are really interesting.
Okay.
It's usually in there for about 5 days. Ideally, I'd like to do a little bit shorter, like 3 or 4, but because our bar shares a space, it like usually has to go through the weekend before we can empty them.
I don't know if you just drink right from the barrel.
Yeah,
it
right.
Cuts out a lot of the middle.
We do get people like complaining about the open beer sitting around. I think it looks kind of gross.
Really?
Yeah. and people have like put their fingers in it and stuff, which isn't the end of the
Oh,
world.
man.
That kind of sucks.
When you say complaints, like a Yelp review, or
No, like in person, like I haven't been there, but like my bartender's like people said like they think that's nasty.
I guess it's sort of like going to a steakhouse and like you can see them like butchering a cow.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
You can see inside the process.
There's going to be a segment that doesn't notice. There's going to be a segment that thinks it's cool, and then
Exactly,
there's going to be
yeah.
a segment that's grossed out.
Doesn't bother me at all that they don't like it. I think it's awesome.
Yeah, totally. It's kind of a badge of honor.
Yeah.
It's the headline. Kevin does not care about his cousin. No, I'm just
Hashtag don't care.
and thinks you're an
Just drink the
asshole
beer.
if
Totally.
you don't share your farm.
You know what? McLeod is down the street. Their beers are nice and clean. All right. Fuck
Yeah.
off.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, so that I'm gonna have to steal that one because again we have that.
Got you back.
That punch. And,
We're even.
one thing I noticed when we were opening this beer, Dead Crush, is it's in a green bottle, which not all of the beers are. So what goes behind the decision on, I think it was clear from the, no pun intended, from the clear glass on the last beer, but what goes in your decision making, green versus brown? When
A
going
couple
into
things.
it?
I mean, I don't think it really matters that much, but for this one, I think that green was a little more like gave that perception of like wine, and also because since it's one of our club beers, also like I like to do like different bottles sometimes, just like make it kind of more special for them. We also do our like saison, that's like sort of a clean saison in green bottles because we want a little bit of that like skunk flavor in there. The light struck flavor, and sometimes we'll have like extra bottles sitting around from a pallet, so we'll use them for other beers.
Okay, interesting. Sorry, I didn't have another question loaded up because Scott has already given me.
Sorry. Well,
no, it's not your fault.
Kevin's very generously brought tons of beers. I don't even know
as
that we're gonna get to
podcaster
them
of
all.
the year of the decade, even,
Self-appointed.
I just have a method that you're kind of messing with right now, but
A crystal method.
yeah, well, yeah, sometimes if I remind myself, yes. So are we ready to go?
Yeah, I
Just
think.
dive in?
Yeah, because
I think we have a lot of beers. so-
Exactly.
Yeah,
we
keep
got
drinking.
we only got one more segment and we got lots of beer, so I want to
Cinque?
taste them all. Yeah.
Cinque.
Cinque means
Cinque.
5 in Italian.
Yeah, like La Cinque Terre, which I was in Italy in May, and that's
Humble
like the 5
brag.
towns. Yeah.
It's another thing that
I
like
was traveling abroad.
my team yells at me a lot about is beer names that are impossible to pronounce. But I also I don't really care. I like it.
Oh man, this beer is incredible. Whoa! And this is kind of a return to the sweet tart thing a little bit.
Yeah.
That character's back.
So this beer, we like our beer club, the Syndicate, has way too many levels. There's like 5 tiers in our club, and the 5th one is like invite only exclusive tier, and this was a beer made specially for those people.
Oh well, I want this.
Do you think that is there an invite in there somewhere for the best podcaster of the decade?
Yeah.
I think I just got it. I mean,
yeah.
I have the beer right here, so
We can trade.
Totally.
So this beer is like wine barrel aged, like mixed culture saison with black raspberries and vanilla beans.
Vanilla. That's what I'm picking up on.
Yeah.
And it's is this bottle conditioned with honey as well?
Yep, bottle conditioned with
There
the
you
orange
go.
blossom honey.
there's a poem on the side.
Read it.
I really
Roses
want it.
are red.
5 ears and no sound in them. I'm gonna try out for Audible
Yes,
right now.
please.
So you tell me how I do it, Kevin.
Take one.
This in a former life. 5 ears and no sound in them. The world is dumb. I listen with the ear of my curiosity. 5 times I cast the fishing line over me. 5 times I pulled up no fish. I asked. No answer came to me in my net. I listened with the ear of my love.
Nietzsche. Yeah, we put tried to put a bunch of like number 5 symbolism on the labels for like the tier 5 thing. There's some other little Easter eggs. in there.
Wait,
that
how
I
did I do?
suppose. No,
You
you're
notice
definitely
he blew
Was
right
that
past
good?
the rating.
never.
I should mention
Yes.
we talked off the air only about what Kevin did pre-brewery for a living, and in fact into this almost the second year of the brewery's existence.
Yeah, I was editing and like producing audiobooks, like not the voice, obviously, but the guy behind all this stuff,
Doing the actual editing,
audiobooks.
which is obviously really cool because obviously we do a ton of audio
Sure.
editing here at the Brewing
Yeah.
Network, and all 3 of us for that matter love listening to audiobooks.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
really geeked out about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. It's
Bunch
like,
of
oh, do we
nerds.
have to do the show about beer now? Well, this is wonderful. This is like
Thanks, pass them down my way.
takes me to a place where it's like, I don't know, just like kind of like, going back to the malt shop kind of thing, like a 1950s cherry vanilla Coke kind of thing.
Yeah. Right.
You know?
Yes.
It like,
Mhm.
it's not overly sweet.
Right.
But there's sweetness to it.
The candy character.
And it just like, it takes me to that place.
This is just fantastic.
The jukebox.
The jukebox.
Yeah, I don't remember what the variety of vanilla bean was. I think it says on there. Maybe Tahitian.
It's something.
Ugandan or something.
Ugandan. Something.
I think Ugandan.
Yeah, Ugandan vanilla beans. Yep.
Yeah, they were a little bit different. They were more like kind of earthy flavors.
Man, this is 8%.
That's great.
Wow, it does not. There's like, do you get any heat from that? Or
Oh no,
not at all.
Not at all.
Wow, this is an amazing
It definitely
beer.
has like a cola.
Yeah,
like
Yes,
an undertone.
100%.
to me.
Yeah,
it smells really sweet and cola-y.
Yeah, but it's like, you mentioned in the last show that you guys have a goal in your beer making philosophy of dryness.
Yeah,
and I think that's still in this. It's like, it's just enough to be probably one of the sweeter by perception beers in your lineup, but that doesn't linger to be cloying at all, and it's just like that's really we're like having a 6-course meal. I feel like.
No kidding. I know, right? Do you have any like what is the little melon ball
Palate
thing for the
cleansers?
palate cleanser?
Yeah.
Aperitif.
Sorbet. Yeah. I think they're all amuse-bouches. Is there a plural to that? Amuse-bouche?
Amuse-bouche?
Yeah.
We're getting punch drunk here.
Yeah, a little bit. Backtracking just a little bit, back to the wine grapes. Going forward, like, do you have a certain philosophy on like? Because I'm really, as we were talking, I'm really interested in the wine beers.
Yeah, me too.
Do you have a philosophy on like how to pick what varietal? I know you mentioned this last time you only had maybe a limited number of options, but what's your kind of philosophy behind that?
I don't know a ton about wine. Like, I like drinking wine a lot and know like very little about the different varietals, and so I think that we choose we look through the options that are available to us, do a little bit of research about each varietal, and just kind of choose something that we think we can make something interesting with, like based on also like what we have available in our barrel stock, because that kind of changes and like waves throughout the year also. So for this, like the first year we did Malbec, this year our red varietal was Petite Syrah, and like those are known for like kind of bigger, like more robust flavors, and so
that is a hearty grape.
Yeah.
We did that a couple years ago, and that is a thick.
Yeah, they don't have that much juice. It's like mostly skin, and so we just kind of like almost reversed it the other way, like kind of pick beer like to go with the grapes that are available to us.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I'm just so blown away by it. Not just the variety, but the quality across the board. This is awesome.
Absolutely.
And we have even more to do.
We do. I'm almost, should I blend a little Dead Crush in?
Ooh,
with
yeah,
the
go for it,
champagne?
man. It's all
I'm gonna
about
do a
the
little on-site blend right here.
Could be weird.
I'm not sure I
No?
approve of this. I philosophically,
Add some Caribbean too. Why not?
Yes. Flavor, no. I'm not.
I like my blend. Here, I'm passing it to Joe.
All right, it'll be a beer next year.
Big surprise. Let's
Yeah, red wine grape.
You might be
Blackberry
podcaster of the decade, but I'm blender of the decade.
You ruined it.
I'm sorry I made that mess, Scott.
Yeah.
No, it's good, but it's, I don't know. It looked like you didn't add that much, but
No, I just a little splash.
It destroys the vanilla.
That's
the,
true.
The vanilla
Yeah,
and
the
berry.
vanilla does go away.
It's all the wine now.
Yeah, that's, I guess, because
It just tastes like that beer, but like a not as good version.
Have you guys done vanilla sour beers? You have, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
A lot.
Yeah, you do like peaches and vanilla, right?
Yeah, the home sour home has that
Peach,
blend.
vanilla, cinnamon.
Mhm.
It's like
That's cool.
peach cobbler sour beer.
That probably just came out recently. Do you put it out around Thanksgiving time every year?
We released it. I mean, we're not that good at it's sour beer, so to tie it to seasons, I don't even try to tie things to events.
The beer makes the
often.
decision. Yeah.
Yeah. But coincidentally, our rye whiskey barrel aged version of Home Sour Home came out.
great.
Ah,
And yeah, it's been flying. So that was
Cool.
really great. And we got some very nice extremely wet rye barrels. I mean, there's like a lot of whiskey in them, but not above the legal limit.
Yeah, no, of course not.
Whatever that is.
Don't you hate that the whiskey barrels?
I don't.
Or is it?
I don't enjoy making beer in spirit barrels,
right?
That are bourbon barrels,
right?
Because they're treated so poorly. The
Yeah,
beer
they're
that
harder
comes
to
out at
maintain,
the end can be great, but
they're the only barrels we have that leak like all the time.
Yeah, that's what you've said. They just leak like crazy, and
they let a lot of oxygen. So we just needed like, it's a lot of prep work and like very, what's the word I'm looking for? Like a very specific decision that we make to like a particular way to approach it. But it's messy and there's a lot of loss, but I mean the beer that comes out can be amazing. It's just on the back end, it's a shit show.
Yeah, definitely.
If you had to pick one type of barrel that you could, if you only had to work with one for the rest of your brewing career, what kind of barrels?
I mean, if it's only going to be one barrel, I would pick wine barrels, like probably white wine barrels. I like those a lot. But I think the most fun barrels to work with have been, one of the most interesting is we have a couple apple brandy barrels. And even after like 4 beers in them, they give off this like extremely distinct character that I really like.
I would pick 100-barrel fooders. So there'd be less work.
Such an efficient decision.
Thank you.
All right, we have more beers and only one more segment of the decade.
Let's do it. Scott, you take us to break for the first time ever.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know how to host the show, man.
You're doing great. Sound just like me.
Thank you very much. Yeah. All right. We will be right back. You are listening to the Sour Hour on the Brewing Network.
Christmas time in the LBC. Christmas time in the LBC.
Let it snow, let it snow, let it snow. I told that motherfucker Santa bring a pick for my afro. And here's a rest on my Christmas list. I want a black motherfucking Lexus. And for my homies down the way, I say bring a gang and take a break. Bring that shit without the tray. Me and my niggas down in LBC. We'll smoke that motherfucking Christmas tree. Silent night, holy night. All this calm, cause this bitch be tight. Light, sing, pick some kind of fucking break the gon' pack. A sack for my nigga two-pack. That's what.
Christmas time in the LBC. Christmas time in the LBC.
Once I'm eggnog, bitch, this niggas taste the best. It's sweet like a motherfucking candy cane. Snoop Dogg hanging low. Give a Jimmy like a great day. Ho, ho, motherfucking ho. Get on your knees, bitch, now I'll show you where this goes. Yeah, put your Jimmy in a motherfucking chimney. I stick my Utah dog in your ass. And then we dress up nice and go to midnight mass. Yeah.
Christmas time in the LBC. Christmas time in the LBC. Christmas time in the LBC. Christmas time in the LBC.
Hey, c'est Jean de la brasserie Cantillon. Vous écoutez le Sour Horror on Brewing. One more time. Hey, c'est Jean de la brasserie Cantillon. Vous écoutez la Sour Horror on Brewing Network.
You know, the funny part about that liner is that we never would have known if he had screwed up if he just kept going.
Oh, yeah,
what do we
exactly.
know? Like,
No, I know.
It's like, oh, wait, you
Yeah.
mispronounced that word, John.
Yeah, come on, John. Where's your French at? He was the original take two, take three.
Yeah.
So that's
shit.
a good way to good way to round out the decade.
He demanded we cut the part where he's like, in an American accent for some reason. Shit.
Vous écoutez shit.
In case you can tell, we're back on this hour.
Are we?
And we are just getting Spoiled Rotten here.
My
by
God.
Kevin from Celador with some great beers. This beer is in my glass. I've had a few sips, and I have no idea what it is actually yet. So for the reveal, let's go over to our correspondent, Kevin.
Hello. It's actually not a fruited beer. It's just it's the base blend from the Homage collab right earlier, Flor de Masamoto. So we've done this is the second year out of the 3 years we've made a collab with them where we do like, an unfruited variant of it so people can kind of see like how fruit changes the beer. And like our personal preference over the years has been to try and dial back the acidity a little bit of the base blend because the fruit adds a lot of acidity. And we really liked like a lot of oak and a lot of aged hop character and like a lot of kind of natural fruitiness in the beer. So that's what we're aiming for here.
How do you encourage? Well, I guess I know how, and probably the listeners do too. But like, you're talking about you want oak flavor in that,
yeah,
and that can be difficult because that goes away with time and usage. So how do you execute that on a practical basis?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, we're still kind of young, so like just to fill our space as we grow, we're buying barrels every now and then, so that helps a little bit. Like even the neutral barrels we get, for the most part, within like 6 or 8 months, we get some oak pickup on it. But for this blend, one of the barrels was that Malbec barrel we were talking about earlier, and it was just like insanely oaky. It had been there for like a little bit too long, so it's really only like maybe 10% of the blend, but it definitely comes through like with some oakiness for it. I think I'd like to try and source more barrels that are a little fresher and have more of that oak flavor in more of our beers.
Gotcha. And one thing I've noticed kind of across all the beers, and this is great, by the way, it's nice, to kind of see the mixed culture on display along with the oak, the hops that you're talking about. But one common thread I've seen is like fairly high carb in
yeah, I was gonna mention
a few of the beers. So is that like a stylistic, philosophical choice?
Yeah, that's
that
a
you guys
personal
do?
preference of mine. I like really carbonated mixed culture beers. I think that some of that, I don't know what it stems from, but we like aim for like high threes, like 3.8, 3.9
That's high,
volumes of CO2. And it becomes a problem sometimes in our draft beer. My like sales guy yells at me sometimes about it. But what we do to try and mitigate that is like if we're shooting that high in bottles, if we're gonna package draft off the same tank, we'll like pre-fill about a third of the keg before we add the conditioning sugar.
So you're doing all keg conditioning.
We're doing all keg conditioning.
Okay.
So to like dial in our keg carb levels, we like are adding some of the beer before the sugar to the
Gotcha.
kegs.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. And it's another way to like definitely enhances that perceived dryness in a lot of the beers. I mean,
Yeah,
we're talking
definitely.
about hops, high carb, and you're fermenting low. That's
I think
all
it's
going
also
in
one of the
direction.
components that like enhances the mouthfeel too, which is like something like one of my top goals is to like have, like I mentioned earlier, that dryness, but also like that really big mouthfeel as much as possible.
Definitely. How do you like this beer, Scott?
Yeah, it's incredible. It has that goozy thing going on. That's the
Yeah.
the first one of the lot of today's beers, and it may be actually the first one that I've had from Celador so far that has that. Is it the aged hops? I wonder.
Absolutely. I think that like the main majority, like 90% of the flavor of goose is like the aged hops.
Yeah.
It's like the most important thing to lambic and goose. And it's like still kind of difficult to dial in, like getting the aged hops and like how long you age them and like what variety you're using. But like it's definitely like attainable, like in American sour beer by just using aged hops. Like none of the stuff we do is spontaneous. So that's obviously not the flavor of it. It's just the hops.
And it's a tremendous advantage for American sour beer makers who don't either need to or choose to adhere to traditional methods like
Yeah.
you see in a lot of Belgian lambic and goose blenders. You can just kind of take the different components of what they do, like you did with the carrot beer in the last show. It's a modified kind of, you take parts of the brew day, I would say, of lambic production,
Yeah.
but not the spontaneous
Exactly. Yeah,
fermentation
we
part.
take like all the parts we think that are important to making the flavors of lambic that we can like achieve given the things that we have, the space requirements and stuff.
And so I wonder if, and I'll ask you this, Kevin, but to speak to your point, Scott, I wonder if the base of the carrot beer tasted like this and had that character before the carrot, and
Yeah.
you just can't really like I mean, so
Definitely,
you
yeah, you picked it
interpreted
out a
as
little bit, yeah.
spice, like, but that's
Yes.
through all 25% of it being
100%.
carrot
Yeah,
juice,
I
so-
wonder the same thing.
Yeah, I think so. Definitely, I like from tasting the barrels before it has some of that character.
Gotcha.
Maybe not to this extent. This beer has like a lot of that character, but in more and more of our beers, we're like striving to kind of make that part of the component of blending at least.
Cool. So we've had so many beers, and I'd say this is like a beer by beer focused show. We're doing like kind of micro glances at your process along the way, but let's take a step back and look at the macro view.
Yeah.
When it comes to being a brewery that gets their wort from offsite, doing barrel fermentations, maintaining your mixed culture, walk us through kind of some of the just like the practical challenges and things that you guys have troubleshooted on, I guess, just the overall production of any beer you'd make at Celador.
Yeah, there's a lot of issues, especially like being that it's mostly just me, like on the production side doing everything. Having contracting wort as our situation helps that in a certain sense, because we can just like kind of hire the brewers at that brewery, which is McLeod, right by us, to help us with the actual brew process. Like we send all our own raw ingredients there and our own recipes, but it gives me like the time during the day to like focus on the barrel prep and like having everything and the mixed cultures and having everything ready. But I kind of mentioned earlier, one big issue is keeping mixed culture around without having like a lot of wort all the time and like topping off and feeding our mixed cultures. And we're to the point now where we're brewing enough, like almost on a weekly basis, that it's not really an issue. Bottling is like a huge problem with such a small team. Sometimes we'll do like 2,000 or 3,000 bottles, and like it's a real like not fun day.
What kind of bottle?
It's like the standard like gravity fed wine bottling, like kind of taking everything on and off by hand, hand capping every bottle like individually. Same with labeling, like hand rolling every bottle on like a little like one at a time machine. So the constraints are mostly like time constraints and like human resources constraints.
Gotcha.
And like when you're that small, to like grow in any way just like affects everything else in like this sort of like cascade of like side effects. So it's a tough process.
And how would you describe, you talked about your mixed culture a little bit. How would you describe what that is? Because I think our listeners definitely really geek out on all the different ways people approach that. It's like, oh, hey, I only, sourced, I think wildflower, they literally got like yeast from local wildflower. It's like from the flora and, wait, which one's the animal? Fauna?
Fauna.
So probably not the fauna, but the local flora. And so what, is there like a backstory to your mixed culture that you tell, or you're just kind of like, hey, here's what works and that's what we do?
Yeah, we actually have like 5 different mixed cultures that we keep around in different carboys, and we almost always use all of them for every batch. But to me, the idea is to keep like one mixed culture from getting too like homogenized. If like we keep them separately, then like they all kind of have their interesting components that stay around. And 2 of them came like all the way back from homebrewing days. It was mostly bottle dregs from like Jester King and
Rare Barrel.
Rare Barrel. No, not Rare Barrel actually. Who else? One of my favorite breweries is Jolly Pumpkin. A lot of like Jolly Pumpkin dregs. And then one of our cultures is just like a lot of different Brett strains from a lot of different labs that we've kept around for a couple of years and keep feeding. Like we feed them, kind of like a sourdough culture. We just like use them partially and then top them off with wort. And one of them started as the skins of peaches that we just kind of open fermented. So there's like a mix of like other brewery stuff and like lab stuff and some like wild naturally caught stuff.
Gotcha. And so we've talked about how you're between 3 and 4 years into this. What do you see as like the near term future for Celador?
Hazy IPAs.
All in. All in. Get them cans.
Yeah, right. No, I think like I want to keep doing what we're doing and like grow it a little bit. We'd love to like, we talk about eventually like getting a bigger space and having our own brew house and maybe doing some like barrel rested lagers in addition to like the sour beers and just kind of keeping it those 2 things.
Rested, I like that.
Barrel, yeah.
Something you never are.
What?
Rested.
I'm not rested.
You're never well rested.
I feel like
You're
I'm pretty
on-
well rested.
Well, that's something a meth head would say.
What? Really? Anyway.
Yeah, but we want to
I'll
keep
cut
doing
all that out.
basically the same thing.
That didn't work. So what I heard there was hazy IPAs.
Exactly.
And I stopped listening.
Yeah.
Okay.
You answered the question before you got done asking it.
Podcast
and
for the decade.
seltzers. And seltzers.
And see a hard seltzer, right?
Love
Barrel
seltzer.
aged, obviously.
Barrel rested.
Barrel rested.
All right, we have a couple things. We have one more beer here that's open, and then we have the question, of course.
Yeah,
And-
this label of this next beer does not remind me of any other beer whatsoever.
super
says
original.
My copyright attorney.
Yeah, right.
It used to be even more similar, and we kind of changed it up a little bit. But this beer is like a little homage to Saison de Pont, which is like.
That's weird because I don't see that.
Yeah,
Not at
right.
all.
Even
How
never
is
noticed.
one to
Yeah.
know?
What camera are we on? Should
Be-
We haven't had a cease and
Which
desist
camera?
yet.
Camera.
Which
Me?
one?
Me.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, here you go.
No, I just switched it to you.
Me. Okay. Yep.
It's also,
There it is.
not unlike this other beer, packaged in green bottles with corks and cages.
Yeah.
Unlike anything like that comes to mind.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, it's a little bit of a cheater beer for this because it's, technically not a sour beer. It's the only beer that we brew that's like monoculture with a lab. We use the Saison strain from Bootleg Biology, I forget what it's called, but they're like Saison blend strain.
Shout out to Jeff.
And it's like our other beers, like primary fermented and aged in oak barrels for 3 months and then bottle conditioned with orange blossom honey.
Saison Parfait.
Saison Parfait, yeah.
So aged in oak barrels, does it see exposure to the mixed culture at that point?
Ideally not. We use oak barrels that have only ever been used for this one beer.
Okay.
But we accept
possible.
the idea that like there's probably some like Brett and bacteria and shit in there.
Yeah.
But we hop it pretty heavily, like 35 IBUs to try and avoid that, and pitch a really big, healthy dose of Saison yeast in the beginning. And
So the Parfait blend, we might have used it a few times. Love Bootleg Biology, by
They're
the way.
amazing. Their Brett strains are great too.
Yeah. And Jeff's beard, out of control. Great, great beard game. So I don't know, where does that like finish in primary fermentation?
It finishes pretty dry. I think that this beer is always around like half Plato finish gravity. It's like 1002.
Okay. So
Gravity.
you're not another reason not to be too worried about.
Exactly,
any
unless
pickup.
that's dryness from Brett, which is also a possibility.
Okay. Oh yeah, from that strain.
No, just from our barrels.
Yeah,
or
from
like
the
our,
barrel.
our
Oh,
house.
but where's it finished before? Oh yeah, I mean
We don't know. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So like we age it in the
I
barrels,
see
and
what
we
you're
don't rack it out of those barrels. It's like aged on the yeast for those
Totally.
3 months. So
it's fantastic.
I don't really try it like all our other beers. I don't really try it in the first couple weeks. So I don't know like how quickly it's like drying out.
Sure.
But like within a month, it's fully dry.
Nice. Yeah. What do you think about this one, Scott?
It's terrific. Yeah, certainly. Of course, it has less, not no acidic character.
It has a little bit of acidity, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
But otherwise, yeah, like it's effervescent. It's clean. Like everything that's a big through line. Everything we've had today doesn't have a hint of any type of acid you don't want to taste. Right.
Right.
Yeah, and to be clear, also this isn't like a clone of Saison de Pont. It's just like a clean Saison. That's
Like you said, homage.
It is an homage. Yeah, that's what it tastes like. It's evocative without being that
Yeah.
beer.
Wow,
Yeah, I
we're
mean,
we're just really dropping the vocabulary.
Saison Dupont has more aged hop character. I think.
It has, I don't know if it's aged
No?
hop character, but it's that. I think it's that like green
Skunky.
skunkiness.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
Which this beer is the newest batch. No, it's from July, so it gets more as it's in bottle longer, but also it doesn't really see much light. We like put it in boxes. Right
If it did, you think it would head more in that direction?
Absolutely. Well, like
100%.
not necessarily like DuPont, but it would have more of that character.
Sure.
I mean,
which would be. I mean, it would be complementary.
Yeah, I mean, where do you buy Saison de Pont?
In
That's
bottles,
a real
yeah.
question, right?
Well, the hop grenade for one.
Not on draft.
You guys serve it?
Yeah, in bottles we have it from. Yeah, we haven't had it recently, but yeah, I mean, as consistently as we can. Yeah.
So I'm thinking more like if I asked that to the listeners and we like ranked it in order to be like
Right.
the Bevmo,
The
or if
dusty
you're in like the
Bevmo
Midwest,
shelf.
like the Binnies
Yeah.
kind
Sure,
of thing.
sure.
Yeah, how old are the
I mean, they're in
bottles?
the grocery store,
100%.
and it's like, so there's, That's
There's some age and
Yeah.
light there.
It's
there,
almost
yeah.
Which, to be clear, like I love that character. I think
I
it's
do
like
too, yeah.
the defining thing about DuPont that makes me love it so much.
Agreed.
Sort of like Mexican beer too. It's like
I was just gonna say
nostalgia for that. I love Mexican beer also.
Me too.
I think when we did Jester King episode 1 the first time, they were talking about like Dos Equis and you know, like being outside and having Dos Equis and like liking that kind of skunked lager kind of thing, and that fed into the decision to do Petit Prince, or as they say, Petit Prince.
Yeah, in the green bottles.
Yeah, in the green bottles. So
We've
I think it makes a lot
talked
of
about
sense.
like, you know, putting pallets of it out in the sun for like a couple hours, but I just think that I don't want to overdo it, and also it wouldn't be consistent, so I don't think it makes sense.
Yeah, can't put the toothpaste back in the tube once
Yeah.
it happens. Awesome.
All right.
Are we
Let's
getting there?
Yeah, let's do the question before we wrap up.
All right, Kevin. What's the biggest mistake in sour beer making?
I really should have thought about this before.
I mean,
Everyone
yeah.
says that. Everyone
knew it was
who
coming.
listens to the show
If
says
only
that.
I would have thought about it.
But I think that it's not using hops. I think that like it's not as big of a deal nowadays, but like a lot of sour beer like 5 years ago and before like was flabby and like over acidic, and I think the main culprit of that was like not using any hops. Because at least when I was like doing research and getting started like making sour beer at home, that was like the known thing to do. You know, like you make sour beer, you get it sour by like not using any hops. You use like 0 IBUs, or use like a few pellets or whatever. And I think that that's a huge mistake. I think that Belgian beer, like Belgian sour beer, it's not fresh hops, but like it's extremely hoppy. It's like fresh lambic is bitter.
Oh, it's super bitter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so like, why would you want to not recreate that flavor?
Yeah. And going back to the question that we got, you know, well, what happens if the beer gets too bitter? It's like, well, welcome to making great sour beer.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
it's like let it age longer; it'll
Yeah.
develop complexity. But I think that's a great answer, and probably one that, you know, if the tables were turned and I was the one now listening to this and gonna go start my own brewery, I would have avoided a mistake that we made at the Rare Barrel to start off. I mean, in early days, we were making a Brett Lacto primary fermentation beer. So it came from a practical place of like, you know, the lactobacillus won't handle, you know, at 25, you know, without pediococcus.
Exactly. You won't have any acidity.
But then that just became the norm when we moved on to other things. And it was fine up front because, you know, we were worried about the beers not getting sour. And then it just so quickly escalated to like, oh, we've got more acidity than we'll ever need.
It's hard to blend out acidity too. Like in a blender, it's easier to like blend in a little bit of acidity.
Totally.
And like aged hops are amazing, and if you're homebrewing, you should definitely use them. Just like get some whole leaf, and always use whole leaf if you're gonna make your own. Just like put them in a sack for a couple months. It doesn't take even that long. It doesn't take 3 years to make them. I think like within 6 months you can have pretty good aged hop character. But also like we use a lot of like American hops in the whirlpool of our boils. I think that like it plays really, really nicely with like the Brett and the mixed culture, and like gets these really cool fruity and like, you know, stone fruity, tropical fruity aromas that are where it's sort of like you don't really know what's the hop and what's the culture flavor.
Totally. Completely agree. Great answer, because I agree with it.
Podcaster of the decade approved.
Boom. And with that,
yes,
let's be out of here.
Let's be. Yes, I do want to do. Given that it is the end of the decade, I want to do some thank yous that don't really ever get done. So indulge me for a moment.
Well,
if you will.
I've been waiting for this.
Okay. First of all, thank you, Bevo. I love you.
You're welcome.
Thanks for being a positive presence in my life for the last decade.
Thank you.
I look forward to more in the future.
This is nice. Is he dying or what's going on?
I have no. I'm just. It's too soon. Thank
Too
you
soon.
to Thank you to my folks, Marty and Kim, without whom the grenade would not be possible. Thank you to the grenade staff, our main man Kevin Callahan, and Aaron and Andrew and Jason and the recently departed Eric, our beloved Eric.
Still alive, just
Still
not working here
yeah,
anymore.
Yeah, sorry, I know this is all very death related, but no, this is really it's really the end of the decade. That's all, you know. And then of course to life, l'chaim, in the
L'chaim.
next decade. So yes, thanks to all the Grenade staff and all the patrons for supporting us over the years. We appreciate it a ton. We're looking forward to the Roaring 20s. Thank you to Justin Crossley, Brewcaster J, without whom none of this would be possible. Here we are going into year number 16 on the Brewing Network. That is huge.
Amazing.
I appreciate him and everything he has built, and being a part of it has been a pleasure and a privilege. Thank you to you, Jay Goodwin, and Alex, Tall Alex, and all of you guys at the Rare Barrel for being unbelievably generous and just another amazing presence, positive presence in my life and all of our lives. I love you, and I appreciate you a ton. Who else? Thank you to. Oh yes, of course.
Excuse me.
My wife Danica, as of my new
New bride.
whatchamacallit, wife. That was a shout out to you, Kevin. And for talk about positive presences in my life. That's needless to say, as huge as it gets. And finally, thank you to all of you guys, you BN Army, who download these shows, who support our sponsors.
I'm
who,
skeptical of
who
you.
tell your friends about the shows, who brew your beer, who are passionate about craft beer and home brewing and what it is we do around here. Without you, before everyone I just mentioned, it really is without you that any of none of this would be possible
What's
without
the
you.
point?
Is what I'm saying. There is no point. We are just talking into the air, which is
We'd
what it
be
feels like
committed
sometimes.
to an
but-
insane asylum.
That's
at
right.
that
Yeah,
point.
totally.
Yeah.
Which, if any of them were still open, we would for sure be in them.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, that's it. I think I've said my piece. We appreciate all of you guys just a ton. So thanks. And here's to the Roaring 20s, man. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. I'm glad you left me no time to reciprocate.
Okay, go ahead.
No, I mean, I think you said it well, so I won't, retread on your tracks or anything. But just for present company, I'll thank Kevin today for coming on up, and thank all of our guests.
Yes.
Who have, shown unbelievable enthusiasm to come on this show, which is strange because I also work at and own a brewery, and there are media obligations that you need to do as an owner or head brewer at a brewery, and the response to people coming on the show, being interested in coming on the show, has been from my perspective just unprecedented. Like, there is interest in being a part of what we're trying to do here, which I think transcends like promoting a brand or having a profitable podcast. There's something more at work, and it's at work in the American Sour Beers book. It's at work in the Milk the Funk wiki and Facebook group. It's at work at the local homebrew clubs, and it's about turning sour beer into whatever you want to call it, sour beer, mixed culture beer, wild beer, into something that has been old and is made new again by American homebrewers, American craft brewers, in a way that has just in the last 10 years exploded in a very exciting time and way. And to be just a part of, like, to be, one drop of ocean water on the surfboard that is riding this wave has been
Good one.
just the ride of a lifetime. So
Yeah.
I thank everyone who's involved in that, and of course, thank you, Scott, for being here with me along the way. You're the bead of water next to me, and one day we will unite into one.
One day. Yeah, one day.
If we're not already. And with that,
man. Yeah,
I say
absolutely.
I say we end it.
All
I say
right.
we both kill ourselves.
Yeah, totally. We're peaking.
Yeah, there's no. Yeah.
Thanks for being here, Kevin. Thanks for the beers.
Cheers,
brother.
thanks so much. Glad
That
to
was
be here.
amazing. A tour de force performance by Kevin
Indeed.
today.
Stellar.
Thank you again to Scott. Thanks to Kevin. Thanks to Bevo. Thanks to all the sponsors and you terrific listeners. You never call. But you know what? Until next time, stay sour.